Welcome to the Carson City School District Board of Trustees meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025, and we are going to call the board workshop to order at 5:30 p.m. So agenda item number 1, roundtable discussion among board members and staff addressing the following topic for discussion only. No action will be taken. Presentation and discussion regarding district policy regulations, CCSD plan for restorative discipline and procedures for addressing student discipline, including bullying and cyberbullying. So at this moment, we're going to start the board workshop, and we welcome Tasha and
Christy.
Chrissy.
Perkins.
I'm sorry. I went
okay.
blank.
Good evening.
I didn't see names. Yeah.
So for the record, Christy Perkins. I'm the director of MTSS and Student Wellness. And I know you had a lot of paper in your packet for some guidance documents. I know we labeled those with different numbers. I thought we could start with just the Carson City School District Plan for Restorative Discipline. I believe it is number 3. It looks like this, number 6. Number 6.
Let me see. Sorry. Okay.
So this plan, you'll recall I brought forward to the board in September 24th. It was adopted by the board of this year. It is a regulation that we must bring it every year to the board by the month of September. And as soon as it is adopted, it has to be posted on our district website as well as each individual school's website. It does require a team of administrators from each site is a part of this plan. So we send the plan to them in August. They then get together. It requires teachers, an alt ed teacher, an administrator, and other staff member who looks at the plan. They provide their feedback to us. We make tweaks to the plan and make sure it is in alignment with their school practices for their restorative practices and discipline. And then, of course, we bring it to the board. So we did that this year. So that's this document here. This document really acts as a guide for our administrators as kind of a frame of reference for all things that can occur in a school. We start with our values of being a safe and connected school, our vision, our mission that students have an opportunity to feel safe and at school to access their education. And then the following pages after that, you'll see some information about MTSS and how as a district we are committed to that process, that we intervene. We make sure we are collecting data, whether it's regarding academics, behavior, social, emotional. So that's kind of our next few pages there. And then there you'll see some restorative questions and for teams to consider when you're dealing with a student with unwanted or habitual challenging behaviors. Have we considered these items before we then, go into discipline levels? So the pages after that kind of show some of our different Tier 1 behavior supports we have. And you'll recall Tier 1 is universal for all students at the school. Those are ones that anyone can access. They have access to, accessing their social worker, their counselor. They have access to making sure there's safe routines in place. There's teachers on duty. Those are things that we ensure all students have access to for a safe environment. And then you'll see our Tier 2 behavior supports. And again, these are just ideas and things we have actively in place in all of our schools in Carson. So some targeted skills, or maybe we might have a group for a student who is struggling with one of these specific skills that they would then go into a little more individualized reteaching of behavior, or some check and check out. We're pairing them with adults, or maybe changing their schedule. We might be altering how they arrive at school, how they leave school. So those would be more Tier 2 for specialized students. And Tier 3 is even beyond that. That's when we step into more specialized behavior plans, safety plans, looking at the function of the behavior. So maybe what is causing this behavior? How can we prevent this behavior? Have we provided wraparound services? So those are just really ideas for our administrators to consider where the student is in that process. Now, you might have a student who's never had a discipline issue and suddenly hops right to Tier 3, right? It might be one severe incident that might move them along quickly. You might have other students who have a variety of smaller behaviors that we want to address in a proactive and preventative way, moving them into Tier 2. The next page there really talks about our restorative practices. And again, this is a law that we have to follow in our schools, that when students are involved in unwanted behavior, we do need to engage in a restorative manner. And really that talks about repairing the harm that was done to the situation, whether it was peer-to-peer, peer-to-adult. We can just make sure we're repairing that harm and re-engaging the student in their education. So there on the next few pages, you'll see some of our restorative practices, the questions we ask, and how we provide that pathway to provide wraparound services and repair the harm that was done. The following next pages are really kind of divided up like a matrix, and it has a variety of behavior events. And then we have a chart on the top there that will say what is required you do and what are things you can do. And this is where judgment of the administrator is going to come in. Some of these situations, as I said, if it's a first-time situation, you can do an in-school suspension. You must do a phone call home, a meeting with restorative plan. So that's where you'll see those charts on the next couple days, or pages, days, it goes on for days and days, but pages, where these are all the behaviors that are also matching the laws. And with the NRS there in that first column, the board policies in that first column. The second is the code that we have in our Infinite Campus system that we can select. And then there's some items on the top that you could do these things, but you must do these things in some of these situations. So our administrators really use this as a tool and guide when they're working with students. There are some things that by law you just have to do every single time on children, and there's other things that, it's going to be your judgment based on your investigation. Once you look into the situation and you get more familiar with what has occurred, then you can go from there. So that goes on for many, many pages. Now it does cover most things that happen at a school, but of course there's always those situations, right, that are still up to your decision-making as an administrator. A lot of these things that we used to see in School Infinite Campus that we were able to choose for behavior have now been captured under bullying. A lot of them have been moved over. For example, assault. You used to be able to choose assault if you were doing an investigation on something that seemed, this kid punched this kid. It was simple. I looked at the situation. I know it was an assault. Now, what that would prompt you to do is open a bullying investigation. You would open that in Infinite Campus, and you would start the process of determining if this would meet the letter of the law for a bullying event. And there's different categories. Was this done based on race, on gender, on those type of factors? Was this one time, severe, pervasive? Was it 5 kids against 1 kid? Was it an 8th grader and a 3rd grader, an imbalance of power? So that's where you really start that bullying investigation, and there's many steps along the way. So even though it looks like there's a lot of categories here, some of them have now been captured under bullying, which used to be their own separate category. That's a change because we've kind of had to train our administrators that you kind of first have to look through the lens of bullying at most situations. And then we have a flow chart you'll see here in a moment. You're going to rule that out right away. Sometimes you might say this was a pure conflict. This is not bullying. This was 2 4th graders who were friends last week or not friends this week, got in a little disagreement. And it's not bullying.
Are you then reporting all of those as unsubstantiated bullying? Because that seems
like a lot.
Tash, if you some for the record, or we have them go back and change it to what it is. But this was done, the way this was structured was at the advice of legal counsel. We work with Ann Alexander, as you know, and she's actually the one who came in and did the presentation on the changes of state law in the last 2 legislative sessions around discipline. It was highly recommended, and I wholeheartedly agreed with her, that we organize it in this manner because the steps that our administrators have to take are the same. Like we have to adhere to the investigation timelines. We have to notify the parents of the victim as well as the parents of the alleged perpetrator, if you will, or, aggressor in that particular case. And then we have to go through the steps of doing those investigations. So you have to take the same steps. However, after that finding, right, depending on what it is then we will go often and change it. So many times we will, in practice, we'll actually just call it administrative investigation until we determine it's actually bullying or when it's going to fall under these items. But when a student, however, or an adult says, my child is being bullied or this child is being bullied, and they use that verbiage, then we have to list it as a bullying investigation, and those become unsubstantiated in that way. So yes, but no, there's a little bit of nuance there.
Yes, kind of. And we do report those to the state in our state reporting at the end of the year, how many substantiated bullying events happened within our district, how many were unsubstantiated. So there is some back and forth with the administrators. There's quite a bit that comes with that. And we do the same, even if something is put into Safe Voice. My child was bullied walking home from the bus, and they put it in Safe Voice. As soon as that administrator receives that Safe Voice, again, that timeline starts. You have to open the investigation. You have to contact the families. You have to take all those steps, start getting witness statements. And we'll kind of have much more on bullying in just a moment here, because a lot of things kind of end up coming in that way. We also do a lot of preventative work with really teaching our kids and our students through our SEL curriculum, our social emotional learning curriculum, the difference between conflict and bullying. There is a difference, and some of this behavior is typical in childhood development, right? Teasing can be, at times, inappropriate behavior we know happens at schools. Not everything is bullying. There are very specific things that qualify for bullying, but not everything is, even though that is kind of become a buzzword at times to describe everything, and that is not the case. Not everything meets the letter of the law for bullying. So when you go through the rest of this restorative plan, you'll see on the back there the committee members who participated in providing feedback to the plan before we came to get it approved back in the fall. They're listed there on the last couple pages. And then if you flip through there, there's some more information about truancy procedures. That is very specific. If a student is truant, that is one that we can't out of school suspend a student for. So if a student is struggling with getting to school and attending school regularly, and even if we've confirmed them as truant, let's say the mom's dropping the child off and then they're leaving and walking to Mills Park and mom says, nope, dropped him off, I want it to be truant, we still then can't out of school suspend the child for that behavior. So there's pretty specific laws surrounding that. So that has some information there. And then the last couple pages here are on creating the restorative plan of action. And this is also a bit of a change for our administrators, and this is quite a bit of work for these behaviors. So when a student is suspended from school for 3 or more days, the school must create a restorative plan for that student. And we have really emphasized that you really only want to suspend the student, out of school suspend the student for the number of days it's going to take you to really create that plan. It is the most restrictive, and we should really use it sparingly, and it's just enough time to get that plan together and created. So after 3 days of out-of-school suspension or 5 cumulative days, and this is where it gets tricky. You might have a 1 day, a month later, a 2-day suspension, a month, and then by that 5th out-of-school suspension day, the team would need to create a plan. There, again, it's quite an extensive process. It involves a whole team. The parent has a voice in that team. The child should have a part of that plan. The teacher, if there's a caseworker, special education teacher, the social worker, the administrator are all pieces of that plan. And then the parent actually signs the plan to let them know that this is what we're going to do when your student returns to school. And if a family decides they don't want to be engaged in that plan, they don't want to be a part of that plan, we just then note there, we discussed the plan with mom and dad. They didn't want to sign here, but these are things we're going to put in place to keep their child safe, and we still will engage in making sure the child is safe and returning to the school.
Christy, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are there parents that actually say, no, I don't want to be part of this plan?
Yes, it's rare. I mean, I think most parents want the best for their child, but maybe at times if they don't agree with the out-of-school suspension or, they feel it was the school's fault. We've had a few that haven't wanted to engage, but generally most parents want to be a part of that plan for their child's success. I think it's been pretty rare. I haven't had
Tasha
many.
Fuson for the record. That we see that at times when, for instance, we put in the plan that we're going to provide wraparound supports for counseling, clinical counseling. At times, families will decline and say, no, we're going to do that on our own. It becomes difficult for us to sometimes verify that they're actually getting those services for their children if we're not the ones that are providing that. We do that through Project Aware that we've talked to you about in the past. But so it's rare that we have a refusal, but like a blatant refusal. But we have had families that will not come in to engage in the process either. So
Interesting.
that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So then the following page there, or the last page in this packet, is the bullying flowchart we've created. And this kind of just gives our administrators, you're going to see several tools here that we've made to make sure all of our administrators are following the processes and making sure the students their safeguards are, being given to them. So what do you do so you receive a report of bullying, and then what's next steps? And you can see there along the way, there's several steps that must occur. And that is just a good reference for administrators of, did I do this? Did I notify the victim? Did I meet the timeline? Okay, it's on a Saturday, we got the report. What should I do? Do I wait till Monday morning? Do I need to, try and contact home now, send a parent square? And then what happens if it meets and what happens if it does not? You'll see there. So the next thing, kind of going back, we have some categories that if these occur at school or when these occur at school, NRS does permit a suspension, a long-term suspension, expulsion, or permanent expulsion for 7 areas. And those are also listed in this matrix, you'll see that. But a student who sells or distributes a controlled substance on one of our campuses is eligible for a behavior hearing. And then they would go to a behavior hearing where the school would talk, the child and the family would discuss, and then the school hearing would make a determination of the child's placement for where they will get their educational services. And that is usually made up of a panel of 3 school administrators within our district who maybe don't know the child, maybe they've worked with them at a different school or a different age, but so they can be non-partial to the student and make sure they're receiving all their rights. The second one would be for a student who commits a battery against a school employee. The third option would be a student who commits a battery against a school employee with intent to result in bodily injury. The next one would be a student who possesses a continuing danger to persons or property or an ongoing threat of disturbing the academic process. That one is ongoing, a little more difficult. That would be a student who's had at least 5 out-of-school suspension days. So we have a process. The first time, if you got a 3-day out of school, the next time, 3-day out of school, you would come to the district intervention assistance team to make sure we have a strong plan in place. We have a safety plan. We have a restorative plan. We're connecting you with services. If we feel you're potentially on a path to become a habitual discipline problem and you're obtaining multiple out-of-school suspension days, we want to make sure we're providing you wraparound services before we just go 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, 15 days, you're out of here. We would go 3 days, 3 days, make sure we have a strong plan, 3 days, 3 days, and then you would potentially on your next violation be eligible for a behavior hearing. And then they would make your determination. The next one is the student in possession of a dangerous weapon other than a firearm. And that one, of course, has some different things that are connected to that, if it meets stat, if it doesn't, and of course our SROs are involved heavily in that process. A student deemed a habitual discipline, I just discussed there, sorry, I kind of skipped around. Or did I get all those? I feel like I skipped one. Battery with intent resulting in a bodily injury, and Yes, I think I did. A student, oh, the other one separate is a student in possession of a firearm or other than a dangerous weapon. Of course, the superintendent must approve all suspensions of student under the age of 6. That I don't believe has occurred here in a long time or ever that I'm aware of.
So if you're looking for this document or reference to what Christy's talking about, if you look at document number 4, this is actually in our Regulation 525 at the very beginning of the, on page 1, it's an 11-page document, but on that first page, there's the categories, the 7 categories on that document that Christy was just referencing. And within this, within our regulation, it specifically goes over the legal definitions of what an expulsion, a permanent expulsion, suspension. In our district, just as an aside, we do have what we call short-term suspensions versus long-term suspensions. That's not defined in state law separately, but in our district, we do. So a short-term suspension is anything under 10 days. Our administrators are restricted to doing anything more than 10 days. If they're going to ask for something longer than 10 days, that's when, like Christy was saying, it has to go to a discipline hearing. So there's some other pieces, if you've read through this Regulation 525, right, that's where we've captured this information that we're going over right now.
And then suspensions for students under the age of 11 are slightly different. These would be the only categories that would be even eligible for those type of suspensions for a younger student in elementary school. That kind of coincides with those students. A student can't be arrested if they are under the age of 11 either. So we, of course, would be working in partnership with our SRO team to determine what is appropriate for everyone's safety in any of these situations.
So if you look on that same regulation, starting on page 5, it actually walks you through what those age limitations are. So again, we have that in the district regulation for our administrators, and actually put together for us a document that actually has a flow chart for them that makes it a little bit easier, that shows the categories of whether or not what age you have to be to take each of those actions. So, but for your reference in your packet, like I said, that starts on Regulation 525 on page 5, that goes through the very specific guidelines about ages. But yes, I agree with you. No, so far we've, luckily, this year, the youngest student that we had that was impacted was 9. And we did a long-term suspension, which ended up in a placement within our Opportunity School program that Mr. Chambers runs. That was the only elementary school child that we've had that's accessed that service.
Yes. And so there are some other safeguards built in for students. We have a couple categories: a student who is on an IEP plan in special education. If they are going to be suspended more than 10 days, you have to conduct a manifest to determine their disability is not what caused the behavior and led to the suspension. And so that IEP team, which would include, of course, the student's case manager, their parent, the school site, they would all be a part of that process, making a determination of, is this related to their disability? There's also some safeguards for our students in McKinney-Vento programming, our students in transition, which we did get some clarity on just this week. They qualify for 5 days. You can't suspend a student longer than 5 days. And same kind of process, you would make sure that their situation they're in is not what caused the out-of-school suspension. For example, a student who we caught stealing food from the cafeteria, who is McKinney-Vento, we would say, yes, their condition they're in maybe caused the behavior, and we would not out of school suspend that child for that behavior due to the situation. So it's kind of a case by case, of course, and we would want to make sure we're looking at the whole student, the whole situation, doing a thorough investigation before making any of these long-term decisions that can have a very negative and significant impact on students. As we know, research really shows that out-of-school suspensions can be detrimental to children, that it can increase dropout rates. It is not always the best option. There's not a lot of supervision at times at home, and so we try to use that as the last resort when we can, unless, of course, safety is our first priority. So I know this workshop was really to ask questions, and I can blabber on here for another 30 minutes, or if we wanted to open it up. I wanted to share a few more resources we've created for our admin team, just because it is an extensive process and it's pretty complicated when you have one of these situations. You might have a bullying investigation that is 30 students and involving bus video and hallway video and statements from students at different school sites and social media. That's the cyberbullying is where it can get very wildfire very quick. If someone's resharing and sharing and sharing, that can be a very thorough investigation and extensive. So we've created some tools for our administrators. Everyone has access. I have it up on the screen here with a Google Drive, and we've created a district intervention assistance team folder for each school site. They, in that folder, have some resources that's we're trying to make it a one-stop shop for people because it is quite a bit, where you would, there's documentation if you need to conduct a threat assessment. So if there's a threat at your school, whether it's on the internet or it's made in person, you would go through, there's a flow chart there to see if this was just a child said something because they were upset and angry and in a temper tantrum, or this is a legitimate threat. If it is believed to be a legitimate threat, you would fill out the threat assessment request, and we would do a comprehensive threat assessment with a whole team of experts, and that we have been trained upon of how significant this threat is. Is it immediate? Is there access? That would involve a home visit, all of those pieces. Also, here is where you could find your restorative discipline plan, as well as any child you want to put in a district intervention assistance team referral because you need more support. The link is right there. You would click there and you would say, hey, we need help with this kid. We've done this, we've done that. It kind of gives you a place to list all the things you've tried at the school, and then we schedule those every Friday. So the restorative discipline plan, and so this is a sample flow chart. The colors are not great on here, but in your packet it should be better because I changed the colors to make it print a little better. So this is just a tool that actually one of our administrators at Carson Middle School created to help, again, guide that process. I know we already saw a flow chart in the back of the restorative plan, but this is just another way to remind you of those things you need to do. So the student, if you believe the student's going to be in out-of-school suspension and they are on an IEP, we need you to call right away the special education office because they need to know that this child is on an IEP, is going to be suspended. They'll talk you through. We take some notes. Also, we have a reminder there about the McKinney-Vento students. So this is just another check and reminder for our administrators. And then it again goes down. If you are doing an out-of-school suspension of 3 or more days, mandatory, you must create a restorative plan. And then there we have some links, active links for our administrators. They can click on that and it gets them right to the restorative plan. As I said, there's a lot of required parts and pieces. I'll show you that in a minute. Over here, if you did less than 3 days, you maybe only did a 1-day out-of-school suspension, a restorative plan is not required, but it should be considered. We might say, well, what can we do differently with this child to avoid an out-of-school suspension? And then as you go down further, you'll see, just different pieces, where things are mandatory, where things are optional, and then when you would refer to a discipline hearing, when you would refer to the district intervention assistance team. So this is just an example of one of the tools we've created for our team. The restorative positive behavior support plan we have at this, I'm just going to pop up on the screen here. This is just to help guide those conversations when you're trying to think what could help this student. So we'd want to know what are their strengths, what is the known information. Maybe we know parents are going through a divorce or student just moved or things we might know and we want to consider. What improvements have we made that are working? So we might say the student has great behavior in their PE class. They have a great relationship with this teacher. So we would put that. Any concerns, any recommendations, and then that action plan. So just some topics so our administrators know what we should be looking for. And then here you have a sample of a restorative plan, PBIS support, positive behavior intervention support plan. So it does take the administrator, student, a facilitator, parent, guardian. What are we trying to prevent? What is the behavior we would like to look like? So let's say we want to prevent your student from hitting other students. The pro-social behavior would be keeping your hands and feet to yourself when on the playground. And how are we going to reinforce that when student has no interaction of hitting other students for 5 days in a row? Student's going to earn a free recess pass, something like that. So we would create kind of that plan, a positive support plan. The one that gets kind of real long here is the individual progressive, and you have this in your packet. I don't know what number it is. Number 9. So number 9, there is a state form. It's not user-friendly at all, and we did ask if we could merge that into a form that was better, and they told us yes. So now we've made it into a Google form. So it gives you all those required pieces, as you'll see in document 9, that you must consider when creating this restorative plan. And remember, this is for any student who's been suspended 3 or more days out of school. This entire plan must be created. So it has some pieces there about the behavior, about the other factors, about how we can prevent those factors, who was in the meeting. You'll check this. Now we've made it so you can just check a box and have drop downs, because before it was crazy. So now you can just click. What was the reason they're being suspended? And then it prompts this restorative questions. So asking the student what happened and collecting a statement. What were you thinking about when this happened? I wasn't thinking, I haven't eaten in 2 days. I was mad at my teacher. This kid is dating my girlfriend, whatever they say, you can put it there. What have you thought about since? So this is supposed to not be done in the moment. This would be when the student has had some time to think after the out-of-school suspension. What do you think has been affected by your actions? And we get some interesting answers here. I missed class time. My parents are mad at me. I lost my phone, the things there. But those are important pieces. And how have others been affected by your action? And is there anything you would like to say? Sometimes this would be good to prompt that restorative conversation. If it's a peer-to-peer, when the student comes back, sometimes putting it in this plan helps them frame that so they can have a conversation with another student. And then we have a section here for the victim. Similar, it follows those restorative questions. These are all required pieces in this plan. And then we have to talk about what discipline was issued. We list that there. And there's some other pieces. Did we create a positive behavior support plan? How do we have interventions in place? Have we asked for more support to a different team if we need more support? Is the student on an IEP? So those are just procedural safeguards for the student that we do every single time there's an out-of-school 3-day suspension.
Tash, a few some for the record. I think one of the things too that's really important for the board to note that we've been working with our administrators on is state law does require, again, not only the creation of this restorative plan, but it says very specifically that if the behavior can be addressed through restorative practices, then the district is required to do that in lieu of suspension. So it's not a matter of where we can go. We actually can say, we're going to suspend you, we're going to suspend you, we're going to suspend you. It's, we're going to suspend you, we're going to write the plan, right? Again, we have to write the plan for any 3-day suspension or cumulative 5-day suspensions. And then we have to get this team together. We have to come up with these processes. We have to come up with these steps. And every time that a student has a misbehavior, we have to look and say, did we do everything we were supposed to do? And is there something else we can do before we suspend this student? The intent of the law is for us not to suspend students, right? There's safeguards in place so that we do not just arbitrarily suspend students without providing wraparound services and reteaching appropriate behavior. That is at the heart of all the changes that have happened within state law in the last 3 legislative sessions. So these are all pieces that we have to do. Also, a change in the last session is that we are required to provide educational services for students who are on suspension that will enable them to not lose academic credit or not fall behind in their education. A homework request doesn't cut it, right? We can't say to teachers, oh, turn in whatever homework, because if I'm sitting in Algebra 2 class and I have these 5 pages with these problems to do, that's not education. That's not educational services. That is just a homework request. So now we have to come up with how are we going to provide that instructional support to that student to make sure that they can stay on top of their academics. Again, the intent is very clear in state law. We are not to suspend students unless it is the last possible thing or unless it's a safety issue, right? It's absolutely, if it's a safety issue, we're going to do that, but then we're going to put these plans in place and we're coming up with another way to address that misbehavior of that student. So before we just kind of open it up for discussions, I wanted to go through, if I could, just the documents you have. So you know what we provided you in your packet. Document labeled number 1 is our district's policy on safe and respectful learning environment. And document number 2 is the regulation. That is very specifically on bullying and cyberbullying, which kind of goes through all those requirements by state law that we have that have shown up for our administrators and our families in that the matrix, right? So that drives the work that's done in this. Also talks about the training that we're required to do for school board members, all administrators in the district, teachers, etc. Document number 3 that we provided to you was the policy 525, which is student conduct and discipline, and regulation 525. And again, that's one that we've already referenced that has all of the different specifics about what expulsion, suspension, long-term suspension, has the appeal process because the parents and families have a right to appeal any disciplinary action we take. And we have guidelines in terms of our time frame of when we have to meet with those families in order to address that appeal. That's in there. It has information for administrators on what those investigations have to entail. Students do have due process rights when it comes to actually being questioned about the behavior and what happened. All right, before we can take disciplinary action, we actually have to investigate. We have to give them an opportunity to tell us what happened. We have to take action, and we have to look to verify that what was alleged happened before we can take disciplinary action. So that's in there. Document number 5 is the appendices to that actually gives the definitions of prohibited conduct. There's obviously much more different, or there's many different categories that are not listed in here. These are the ones that are listed in the law for schools. Again, we're not law enforcement, so we don't have every single code that law enforcement would have. But we do work with our administrators. They'll call us and say, this occurred on campus. What category am I going to put this in? Because it doesn't show up, right? So assault doesn't show up as its own category, as an example that Christy used earlier. So we work with them on that. So that is, then number 6 was the actual matrix that you have that we shared with you. Document number 7 in your packet is a list of all the different types of plans that we have to create within our district. So if you look at number 7, if you'll pull that out, it literally goes through what an individualized progressive discipline plan based on restorative justice is. That's one kind of plan. What a student safety management plan is, different plan. What a bullying, cyberbullying student safety plan is, different type of plan. Positive behavioral support plan, again, another type of plan. And positive functional behavioral assessment and behavioral intervention plan. The following page, comprehensive functional behavioral assessment and intervention plan. Then a student safety plan through student support services, and a student study team or intervention assistance team plan. So we just wanted to give you definitions of all the different plans that we work with our school administrators on. All of these are different and all required in different situations and which one is appropriate when. So there's just an outline of what those are and what they're used for.
In that crosswalk that we were just looking at, we have there who are the required team members for some of those plans. There are plans that would require maybe a behavior analysis person who has a different licensure than we would have at a school site. We might have to bring in outside people to support some of creation of these plans. But it is, again, pretty complicated, and it's individualized based on the student situation.
So then we have document number 8, which was that flow chart. Document number 9, which was an example of our Google form of the this very long state form that Christy showed you, where we tried to make it in a Google form and shorten it a little bit for our school site. So that's document number 9. So those are all of the supporting documents that we wanted to share with you, just to kind of show you, again, in addition to the stuff Christy showed you that we've created on the Google site for them as well.
So Tasha, one of the things I'm wondering about is, it's clear there's tons of resources for school administrators, and we all live in that world. There's part of that requirement that each year we're sharing this progressive discipline plan with our students, with our staff, with our parents. And I really think that part of it is kind of helping develop a nuanced conversation which focuses on not just we have these procedures that are in place, district policy, state law, but also federal laws like FERPA and really what due process means and the explanation. I think that one of the problems is, we run into, because you don't know what happened to student X, nothing happened to student X, which isn't necessarily true. So, it's almost front loading with when there is a problem, we could discuss, in general terms, we could discuss your child with you, but another child we can't. And I think that that's one of the things that is really frustrating. And I think that to get in front of when we're talking with families and students and staff, I think that's really helpful. And I think that also as administrators, and I've talked to a couple of administrators and I've encouraged them, there's a lot that goes into this. Talk to the school trustees. Let them know the processes that go through, because nobody knows how much work goes into these investigations if they've never been a school administrator. And even though they can't give specifics, they can tell parents, they could tell students, they could tell us as trustees how robust these investigations are without giving those details. And I think that would help a lot.
Thank you, Trustee Walker. So for everyone else on the board, FERPA, or Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, prohibits our employees for discussing other people's children with other people. For instance, if you call as a parent and you want to make a complaint that your child is being bullied by this other child, and then we do an investigation, we do send notification to say that it was founded, right, or unfounded. So we investigated, it was founded or unfounded, but we very often get follow-up phone calls from those families going, well, I want to know, did you suspend that kid? What did you do that kid? And we have to tell our families, we are unable by law to tell you what we did to another child, what disciplinary action was dished out. And it makes sense, and most families understand that, because they say, would you want me talking about your child with another parent? Most parents can understand that and can support that. But it's very difficult, especially when you have very upset parents. I would be upset if my child was being bullied. I understand that. But it's an interesting thing that our administrators try to navigate all the time. Exactly what you're saying, Trustee Walker. Like, how much can we say? Right? We did this, we investigated. Yes, it was founded, right? Yes, we are taking action. And this is often when this document comes out and we explain to families, if you want to know what possibly can be done, look at this document. These are all the things that can possibly be done. I can't tell you what I did. I can just tell you I took appropriate action for this student. The other thing that is often challenging is that progressive or discipline in nature in a school system is progressive. So as Christy already stated, a student who is a first-time offender, if you will, right, comes into the office and we're dealing with a situation, whatever that situation is. This student, we were maybe out at lunch passing a vape that had THC. It's my first offense, but it is her fourth offense,
Hey.
right? Right? My disciplinary action is going to look very different than her disciplinary action. And that is a very difficult thing to explain to families too, because they want to know, why did she not get suspended and she got this drug class and maybe 2 days of in-school suspension, but you're putting my kid up for a discipline hearing? So it's progressive in nature. And again, that's very difficult and challenging to try to explain to families when it comes to state law. I cannot tell you what I'm doing with this child, but the kids talk, the kids know, this is what I got, right? So but we do explain FERPA often to families and explain to them, this is why I can't tell you, but that doesn't mean that that sometimes that works. We still have people who disagree or go, you didn't do anything. We hear that more often. You didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. We might have spent 15 hours investigating and had 20 parent phone calls and had 15 different parent-teacher conferences and all this stuff. But if they're not seeing the kid suspended or kicked out of school, then the go-to is you didn't do anything. So I agree.
And
We do work with
progressive
them on that.
can mean layering on additional services and supports. Previous years ago in administration, progressive meant more days out of school suspension. You could go 3 days out, then 5 days out, then 7 days out, then 10 days out, and then it was like kids out of here, and that's it for the rest of the year. That is not the case anymore. Progressive means we've layered on more supports and interventions and services. So that has been a change for some of our administrators who've been in school settings for a long time. That's very different. And it's a different way you really have to look at each situation. How can we prevent the behavior rather than react to the behavior?
I believe we have some questions. Is this a good time?
Sure.
Molly, did you have one? Okay. Does the board have any questions?
I have a question regarding FERPA, I guess. So we could have a bullying situation on a Friday and the kid returned to school on a Monday who did the bullying, and it's federal law that we can't tell the victims, the little kid, boy, that your bully's coming back to school on Monday. That's protected.
So the timeline starts as soon as the school became aware of the bullying investigation. So if, let's say, Friday afternoon, it was put into Safe Voice, administrator, law enforcement became aware, we would have to notify the potential victim and the offender that we are opening a bullying investigation. Your student is the potential offender. They're going to come immediately to the office and be in this, where I'm going to meet you at your car on Monday morning. I'm going to walk you to the office. You're going to be in here during the investigation, so we can keep the potential victim safe as well, because we have a duty to warn that potential victim that you could be in harm's way, right? If we know, hey, I'm going to come to school on Monday and beat you up, kid, and this kid is afraid to come to school, we have an obligation to notify that family to keep their child safe as well. So our clock starts as soon as we become aware of it, that notification process happens to the parents. And then we would ensure that while we're doing the investigation, which may lead to an out-of-school suspension, that we would keep those students safe from each other, the potential victim safe from the offender.
Okay, so to continue that, then I guess, hypothetically, that kid is suspended for a day.
Okay.
And does FERPA cover this kid is returning to school? You might want to make your kid aware that they're coming, because in my experience, I mean, I'll be honest, it's happened to me. And the frustration I have is nobody notifies people when that kid is coming back to school. And I was told it was FERPA, that we can't tell you when this kid is coming back.
Right, because I technically can't even tell you that the student has been suspended from school, so that would be
Well,
accurate.
like you said, kids
But we
talk about
do,
it.
what we do is we put a safety plan in place, and the safety plan for the victim would address that, to say this is what is occurring to make you feel hopefully safe and secure at school, right? These are the teachers we typically will identify a safe adult on campus that student feels comfortable with. We tell the student or the teachers in and around that area, so extra supervision can be provided. But yes, in your particular case, yes, you are correct. I cannot tell you that we suspended another student and when that other student's coming back. That is accurate.
Any other questions?
So are we using this, or are you bringing this back in September for us to approve for the next year?
We have to
Yes,
bring it every year. It is, we will have to renew it every single year. And as I said, it'll go out in August after it goes through our legal team. We send it to our administrators. They then give us feedback. We make the tweaks, and then we bring it to the board each year.
Okay, because I do have, some concerns about, on page 7, attendance truancy, the first and second, the plan of action matches the third truancy. They're exactly the same as required actions and optional actions as well. There's no differential. And so I just didn't know whether or not, if it would be in the position of the board, that we can encourage you to make some of the optionals required actions when you bring it back to us in September. Some
For
of these-
truancy, what would you suggest would also be
Well, like the
required?
third, the third truancy there's no difference. So, make an optional, one of the O's, making them X, so the first and second truancy is different than the third one. Do you see what I'm saying?
So you're wanting to know what extent that you can dictate what
Yes.
actions administrators take? I'm going to have to defer to legal counsel on that.
And it wouldn't be so much dictation, but as much as, encouragement.
If you
to
make it mandatory,
'cause-
that's dictation
Because
to
what
me.
I'm saying is, well, what I'm hearing is this restorative plan really does protect, and it we're working at keeping, those who are habitual, ones who are disturbing the classroom, okay? When a first grade class has to evacuate their classroom because one student is in there throwing desks and throwing things, and it's like, okay, let them in their classroom while we evacuate everybody else and move them into a different classroom. This is habitual. This is a problem, but we're doing a lot to really put into place to make sure that this one student is getting, the discipline or, the positive behavior and all of this, but what are we doing with the other 20 students who are evacuating that room? What safety measures are we taking for them? Because one, you did put them in it is safety for them. And then two, they're losing instructional time. And so what I'm getting as a school board trustee is the fact of what are we doing to help those that aren't the behavioral problem with their instructional time that they're missing, whether it be, for example, MAPS testing at Carson Middle. And, you have a student who continually is in the hallway and yet screaming in the hallway. But we're working really hard to make sure that this student gets, the parent conference, the counseling, the restorative, plan, the positive behavior, but yet he's disrupting other classrooms. And so, I shared this and said, here it is, it's online. It's part of our supporting documents, take a look, see what it would be, and talk to your school administrator. At what point do we then, can we change any of these O's to X's to maybe start looking a little bit differently at those students who are losing academic time?
So
Sorry. No, please.
I was going to say, Tasha Fuson for the record. I would think that probably the vast majority of students that you're referring to are being served on individualized education plans, which is a totally different law and different requirements that we have in terms of their rights to a least restrictive environment. So I understand what you're talking about in terms of saying, what rights do non-special needs students have? I cannot answer that, and perhaps Ryan will, but when it comes to special education and IEPs, you don't have the authority as a board to make any mandatory actions against them. That is all done by an individualized education plan and a behavior intervention plan, and that has to be done by a team.
So they don't adhere to the restorative justice?
Correct. If they have an individualized education plan that has their own behavior intervention plan written in it because of it's a manifestation of their disability, that is correct.
And this is the frustration for educators, parents, students, including the students who are misbehaving in classrooms, because sometimes they can't control it. And so it's a very challenging conversation to have, and it's something that school administrators work tirelessly on. And I know Matt could vouch for that because he has worked with my team and I on multiple things like this in both Carson City and Lyon County. And so I think, Molly, the frustration it's bigger than what we can just do in this room, really.
And see, and that's why I guess I need some more clarification, because I think if it's an O, it's optional. And that's where I would like to have the discussion on whether or not we can make it required. Like, so for example, on page 10, possession of alcohol, that's illegal. I mean, that's illegal for under an 18, and it's optional that we, right now it says that it's optional that we involve the law.
So I'll tell you a couple things, especially noting that you guys are running out of time here pretty quickly. One, I can get you a memo on exactly what the stretch of your authority over this is before you have to consider it again. Two, it's drafted intentionally to be in conformance with both federal and state law and guidelines. But they are guidelines because there has to be some flexibility, because truly no one size fits all. It has to be moldable to each situation in the administrator's discretion. If there's an IEP team, they have to be involved. There's a lot more to it than just making something mandatory and saying, if you do this, if it's possession of a firearm, the law gives us some mandatory things that we can do. But there's a lot of gray area behind that. And I'll get you guys some follow-up research, though.
And if I could then, if you could really kind of direct some of the stuff that is illegal for underage, you know, like possession of alcohol, arson, use of alcohol. You know, I would think those it would be required to include law enforcement, because it is illegal.
And I can look at it.
Okay.
Like Tasha said, we're not at the school law enforcement, so the idea is, do we bring in the SROs or not? All the school can do is impose what they think is appropriate discipline, taking into consideration everybody's rights, including the alleged perpetrator, which I think is a really hard practical thing, which is why there's so much case law and research on it. But I will get you guys more information.
Molly, do you think it would help if maybe you volunteered to take part in the district's drafting of this in the fall, and seeing what that process and that conversation goes through? Because you have to take the feedback of parents and students and staff members as you craft this, and then you have to present it to everybody and post it and bring it to the school board. It's real involved, but I think that maybe it'd be eye-opening. Maybe volunteer and help them with that next year, and then that'll help you with that understanding. And then you also could put those ideas into the formation of the plan, and maybe that'd make you feel better about it.
It would probably help be able to answer the questions better to what I guess I would call my constituents who, you know, come, because, yeah, but I thought a board member is already on this.
So, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I thought a board member
know about
is.
that.
Aren't they?
Not
No,
that I
we
know.
bring
It's
it
not a
to
committee.
you and
Bring
you
it
have
to
the
you to-
final authority, right?
Oh,
That
I thought a board
as
member was on the
group.
committee.
No.
Because isn't it a committee?
At
But-
each site, we send it out. First, it goes through legal. We make sure all the NRS, you know, are addressed here, and then we send it to each school site, and then that school administrator meets with their team at their site for the feedback. And then we bring it to the board for the final approval.
Well, and
Yeah,
what
no, I'll
might
be
help
on-
in the research I provide you guys is understanding the legal parameters that are required, because a lot of what we're talking about isn't going to be fixed at the board level. If it's statutory, it's federal regulation, and we can't fix that here, but we can at least make people aware of it so they can write to the powers that be.
So, and just adding to that conversation, I actually had some questions on the handout number 2. And that was going to be actually the question that I was going to ask. I know this is a workshop, and I wanted, and I also heard that we're bringing this document back in September, but I wanted to ask, on page number 7, where it says the school safety team will, and it gives the list of things that they will, but it does say on number 3, and I'm looking at the letter E, number 3, it says review and strengthen school policies. And so my question to you is, because it is a policy, shouldn't we have a board member as one of the individuals that form part of the team?
No, that is for the school safety team. So that is not the district safety team. That is not the school board safety team. That is the school, each individual school site has their own safety team, and that safety team meets twice a year. That school safety team is also a team who gives us feedback on the overarching document.
Okay, Okay, thank you for that clarification. But yeah, I would concur with your recommendation. I mean, if Molly's willing to, serve on that group, I think it would be beneficial to you guys and to us as well. One other thing I was gonna mention on number 5, under D, it says for middle school, junior high school, or high school. We don't have a junior high school, right? Is that a change that?
That's
is-
correct. Both of our middle schools are middle schools, not junior high. Junior high is typically 7 through 9.
So then for the upcoming revision, that will be removed?
That's verbiage from NRS, but if you would like us to take that and change it to what
Just
you
to
want it to, we can do that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Ms. President, it is 6:30.
Okay, well, thank you so much for explaining us this thorough project that is intense, as we can see. So thank you so much, and at this time, we will close the board workshop. Intense. Okay, good evening, everyone. Not yet? Okay. Okay. Do you want me to do the final results?
No, I just had to, I'm good, I just had to start the recording and I hit, okay, go.
Start? Yeah. Okay, I have been given the go ahead signal. So, good evening, everyone. We are going to call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. And we are going to go with agenda item number 2, adoption of the agenda as submitted, and this is for possible action.
Second.
Okay, moved by Trustee Walker, second by Trustee Berner. Any board discussion? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3, flag salute. If you can please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Agenda item number 4, Superintendent's report, and this is for information only. Superintendent Feeling? Of course. You're excused. No, just kidding. Right?
Thank you, President Ramirez. This evening, we have a special guest with us. And, and I don't want to point out and embarrass this person too much, but hi, what's your name? Hi, Peyton. Sheila, would you mind standing up here for a minute so I can embarrass you? Sheila's story, our chief nurse, you've been with us for about a year now, is that right? About a year. Was recognized by the Nevada State Association of School Nurses as the 2025 School Nurse Administrator of the Year. Sheila is kind of a big deal and is someone, because I really know nothing about this world, that has been such a great resource for me in helping me understand. And I know that if I have a question, I will get a response, a quick response, a thorough response on any topic, even things, words I can't pronounce, that Sheila knows what it is, how to handle things, and who to talk to if necessary. So what we have here, and this was magically delivered to us, is a very nice award and recognition. Congratulations for this so much. Would you like to say?
Thank you so much. It's very nice being honored and being nominated by some of my school nurses. I greatly appreciate them. Real quick, I just want to tell the district office, thank you so much for all of their support. I've been chief nurse for almost 20 years, and they've really, I call, they listen, and they respond. So it's been really nice. I've had such incredible support from the district office. I've had great support from Student Support Services, and also each individual school and all the administrations throughout the whole year. They have allowed us the opportunity to keep nurses and clinical aides in all of our schools, which has truly, I feel, benefited our student population in regards to keeping them in school, less absenteeism, less tardies, and also resources. We help with all the first aid and medical throughout the day, and part of our jobs is giving resources to families and students and faculty and staff in regards to how to keep them healthy and that type of stuff. So we've been very fortunate that the district has been so supportive, along with each school, to allow these special programs to come in, like the Lions Club for Vision, dental resources, 3 or 4 dental resources. It has been amazing, the resources we have found. And basically, I think the most important thing that I have learned throughout my years is we really need to network and develop those and foster those relationships so they continue to come back and help our students. The whole goal is health, safety, well-being, and academic success. And that truly has been my goal since I started in 2001 with the school district and also being chief nurse. I also want to give a shout out to all my incredible nurses and clinical aides who work for the school district. They have shown total dedication, kindness, love to all of our students. And I can't say enough about them and how amazing they are. So I want to tell them thank you so much for your support. Also, we also have to thank our families. I know my children have been through a lot with me, being at Carson High and being on them for grades and everything, you know what I mean? I'm there and I'm always present. So they have been very understanding, very kind, and very helpful over the years. Michaela was a nurse at Mark Twain with me. She just knew where the Band-Aids were. And same with my two sons. I was a graduate of Carson High School. I went through the whole Carson City School District, and all three of my children did, and they've all been very, very successful. So along with being an employee of the school district, my children have received an excellent, excellent education. And I just have to thank all their teachers in schools for helping me raise my children along with my husband. Thank you so much.
Should we get a picture?
Can we?
Okay, absolutely.
And then can we get a picture with?
You should hold this.
Okay.
Why don't you and I get a picture, and then how about we bring all of this stuff here? Help you out. Mr. Davis, do you want to take a picture? Nancy, you can come on over too, it's okay.
Can I get a picture with the nurses?
Absolutely. Why don't you all come on up here right in front of the school board? Maybe board members, maybe you can even huddle behind.
Before the nurses run off, I would just like to say thank you to all of you for all the work that you do at our schools and keeping our kids safe and well treated. So thank you guys. I know that it's a hard job and you guys do a lot of excellent work. And Sheila, I was going to mention that you're a high school graduate from here at Carson High. And this is what we like to see really as a board, is somebody who goes through our school system, then comes back to serve in the community. So that's kind of what we strive for. So just another example. Nancy's another one that went to school here and then came back and served the Carson City School District for 28 years. So, and like I said, this is, I think, what the board kind of strives to do. So thank you, Sheila, and congratulations.
Sheila, I also want to thank you. I want to congratulate you, and I want to thank you for everything you do for our students on your full-time job and after work, helping out with athletes. My daughter benefited so much from being in the cheerleading team, and I know you and your daughter were instrumental in giving those students the skills and the confidence to go out in the world and do good things. And so thank you so much. You are a tireless person that you just don't run out of energy. You're all over the place. So thank you for everything you do. I believe we have other comments.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say congratulations, well deserved. I think the thing that sticks out the most is, yes, you are a leader when it comes to all of the nurses throughout the school district, but you didn't just stop there. For many, many years, your day did not just stop at 3, or 2:30 p.m. And I think that is a standout as well. So you have been instrumental at Carson High School and throughout the district. So this is well deserved, and congratulations.
I was just going to add, every time if the phone rings and you look at the number that's calling, when it's a school phone number, there's a moment of panic. And then you answer the phone and it's, hi, this is a school nurse. The panic is a little different, but it always comes with comfort when it's one of your team on the other end of the line. Because I know if it's getting a call, it's because it's something that needed addressing and that it's being taken care of, that my kids are in good hands, whether it's they're sick and need to be picked up, or somebody broke a bone or dislocated a shoulder and you've tried your best and can't get it back in, come get them. They're always taken care of. And I appreciate there's a level of confidence and trust when you send your kids to school, knowing that you're not just sending them to be educated academically, but you're trusting them into the hands of good people, and you are good people. So thank you for everything that you have been to my kids, and based on the support that is here in this room to many people, not just kids, but your colleagues as well. So thank you for you.
Otherwise, the only report is to let you know that spring break is almost here. And everyone needs it. So thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Feeling. Agenda item number 5, board reports, board member comments, and this is for information only. Do we have Carson High School student representative? Yes, we do. Come forward, please. And then I will also invite our Pioneer Academy representative as well. And if you can please introduce yourselves and start off with your report. Can we start off with Carson High School?
Good evening, everyone. I am Diana Ancod, one of the school board representatives for Crescent High School. For my report today, I will be talking about current and upcoming events for Crescent High School. For sports, today there is a baseball game or JV away game at Spanish Springs and a varsity home game versus Spanish Springs. And for softball, there is a varsity away game at Damani Ranch. Tomorrow, there will be a track meet versus multiple schools at 1 p.m. On Thursday, April 10th, there is a baseball JV home game against Galena and a varsity away game against Galena. And for softball, there's a JV home game against Yarrington. And on Saturday, April 12th, there is a home swim meet against Spanish Springs at 9 a.m. And for our leadership class, our new executive board for next school year just came back from attending the NASC State Conference in Vegas, where they got to meet different leadership classes from different schools all around the nation and got to do many different activities and workshops together. Also, 2 of our Carson High School leadership students got to be junior counselors for that event. And also, we won the Regional Wild West Award, the State Silver Star Award, and this is the second time we've won it. It had been 8 years before that. And lastly, we won the National Council of Excellence Award for the first time ever. And we also have our 3 exciting upcoming dances. On Friday, April 25th, is a father-daughter dance from 6 to 9 p.m. And on Saturday, we have our friendship ball from 2 to 4 p.m. and our junior-senior prom from 7 to 10:30 p.m. All will be held at the Carson High School gym, and our leadership class is currently working hard on preparing for all those events. And that is all for my report today. Thank you.
Congratulations on those awards.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Nguyen, if you didn't know. I'll be presenting Pioneer's announcements for tonight. So I want to tell you guys something. I am pretty glad that our next meeting is going to be on the 22nd, to my knowledge, right? Because if it came next week, then it wouldn't be me here, but a postcard from Tahiti with the announcements on it.
Actually, we will not have a regular board meeting on the 22nd. We are having an employee recognition in place of. So you will not be doing any reporting that day, but you're welcome to come in and help us celebrate.
All right,
Yes.
All right. I'll celebrate with you guys.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I'm excited for spring break. All of our kids are excited for spring break. It's like 7 in the morning in class, and all I'm hearing from kids is like, "What are you doing for spring break? It's Tuesday, man. Come on." But we realized that there's only going to be about a little bit over a month of school days left after spring break ends. So we're working on telling students that, hey, this is a break where you're not going to be assigned any more work, so take advantage of it, do what you can so you can stay on track, because you don't want to do 18 missing assignments just before finals.
Good advice.
I wanted to give a shout out to our staff, namely our Vice Principal, Dr. Molden. She wrote that herself, by the way. distance learning coordinator, Mrs. Jill Council, and our counselor, Mr. Jordan, for stepping up to the plate and talking to our students about where they want to go for the rest of the year and for the next school year. The Greenhouse Club and science teachers have also been using the hydroponic systems that we got from Green Up, and they've been booming pretty well, actually. So we're going to be setting up a booth at the farmers market, hopefully, and we hope to see you all there. And finally, the speech and debate team will be hosting their last Pioneer Pizza Painting and Punch event on the 21st, and it's going to be from 5:30, I believe. So if you haven't been able to join us before, please, I would be happy to see you guys. And I hope everyone enjoys their well-deserved spring break.
What time was that again? I'm sorry.
I believe it's 5:30.
5:30?
And I will be
Okay.
there too, so
Okay.
yay. Thank you. This is Caitlin signing
May,
off.
that was the 21st of April?
The
or May?
21st of April, yes.
April. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Diana, and thank you, Caitlin. There's no, okay, all right. Okay, we're gonna move on with the agenda. Okay, so Nevada Association of School Board, NASB update, Trustee Varner?
Yeah, I really have no update tonight.
Okay, thank you. Board announcements, and we will start off with Michelle.
All right, mine are kind of quick tonight. What I have for Mark Twain this Thursday, so you got 2 days away. They are having a bingo night. They'll have a food truck, ice cream, raffles, and more. It's 3 cards for $1. It's this Thursday, the 10th, from 5:30 to 7. And even though it's hosted at Mark Twain, everybody is invited and welcome and encouraged to attend. They would love to have you. They're also still looking for donations. So if you or someone you know has something that you'd love to donate as a prize for that, you can take it to the office tomorrow or Thursday, and they would love to have it. And then my only other one would be for Carson High. I passed it down the board. We got a sneak preview. It's been mentioned, and I know there's been an article about it, but the FBLA and marketing team class have worked really well as a team and worked very hard with the help of Carson Now, and a lot of community support has been tremendous for this. But they are putting out their first magazine, the Entrepreneurs in Action. So the FBLA kids, they were responsible for soliciting sponsors and selling ad space to fundraise for it. And then the marketing team interviewed local entrepreneurs, so people who had a vision and chased the dream and are out there doing great things. And some faces that are familiar to the Carson City School District family are in here. They have got some articles, but several articles were written. Unfortunately, they couldn't all fit in here, but the list is long of other local people who would love to be featured. And so they felt very supported and are hoping that this will be an annual thing. But the launch party for this is this Thursday as well, on the 10th, from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Brewery Arts Center. Mayor Bagwell will be there, as well as another distinguished guest, Mr. AJ Fueling, will be a part of that meeting as well. So, and the kids that were a part of this. So it's, if you haven't seen it yet, it will be free. You can take a sneak peek, but just don't take the magazine. But this will be here. So congrats to those kids that worked so hard.
Wonderful. Yes, I agree. I saw that magazine. It's impressive. I mean, the work that they've done. And some of those entrepreneurs are alumni Carson High and WNC students. So really, really cool stuff that we have going on. So, okay. So, Rebecca?
All right. Well, Fremont is holding a enormous STEM night. It's going to be April 30th at 5 o'clock. And I think there was a QR code to RSVP to that. And they will have huge participation with students, parents. They have had so many community members involved in this, including Home Depot, DRI, and just many more, to be able to create this experience for our families. And then also look at Showcase. Advid, sorry. Still learning all the acronyms. Come on, I know. I've been here 3 months. 4 months. So it's been a major undertaking, and for this National Showcase School, and yes. So sorry, I'm like, to become this national showcase school. So a great thing to celebrate, and it'll be May 6th from 8:30 to 12. So please reach out to Dr. Ward if you have questions on that event. And that's it for Fremont.
Thank you, Rebecca. Richard?
Yes, for Boardwalk Bray, they're still working on their math SBAC testing. It's continuing this week for their third, fourth, and fifth grade students. The fifth graders will also take the science test on April 24th and 25th when they return from spring break. The students worked very hard last week on the ELA test, and the principal, Ricketta, wanted to thank all the parents for ensuring that their children got a good night's rest and are at school each day of testing. And it's still not too late to get your tickets for the Boardwalk Bray night at the Reno Aces on April 25th. Please see Parent Square for the link. As a reminder, their choir will be singing the national anthem. Then their next Math Fact Bunny Challenge is on April 23rd. And please help your students practice their math facts each night and over spring break. Students who improve by 20% will get to participate in an egg hunt on April 29th. And the students are all very excited and really want to meet their goals. So good luck with everybody at Boardwalk Bray. And then let me get down here. For Fritch Elementary, Principal Brown wanted to thank all the Fritch parents for their support in preparing their students for their SBAC testing each day by ensuring they were well rested and motivated for the test. He also wanted to wish everyone an amazing spring break and a happy Easter. And that's my report.
Thank you. Matt?
No report for me today.
No report from Matt? Okay, very good. Molly?
Mine, I do believe the fence went up at Empire, correct? Yeah. All right,
Empire?
so, yeah, so we have. Okay, so we're going to say that we're excited to see that we have now a public park that is now separated from a elementary school. So that is exciting news for Empire Elementary School. And we are working on now developing the playground for the fourth and fifth graders as well. And we do believe that we have some donated soccer goals and whatnot for that area. So that is quite exciting. That's what I have for Empire.
Thank you, and thank you for spearheading that request. That was very important. So, okay, Mike.
So great things are happening at Seeliger Elementary School, and so they are doing well with their SBAC testing. Sounds like one more day to go, and they want to congratulate Mr. Eikenberry, who's in the audience, for his first year coordinating testing for them, and the students for doing so good on their tests and showing what they know. They are thankful for the foundation for donating snacks to the APTT Math Night for third graders last week. And tomorrow they are going to have a scavenger hunt to support the specialist teachers in getting the supplies they need for PE, music, and computers. And they thank all the generous support from families and the community. So that concludes the report from Seeliger. And then this week just got back very late last night with Trustees Peterson and Varner. We attended the national conference, and it was great to attend some sessions with Michelle, and we learned about our colleagues in White Pine and their STEAM Academy, and there were a number of sessions on AI and accountability measures that help schools. So it was a good session, and it was great to collaborate with the two of them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. I think if it's okay with you guys, I'd love to have you guys share those some key points or some bullet points of information that you guys brought back from the conference. That would be awesome. Thank you. Okay, and for me, Kaylin did a wonderful job in reporting from Pioneer as usual. The one thing I want to say is thank you to Mrs. Virgil from Empire Elementary School. She spent some time with me, talking to me about her goals, what she is bringing, from Wash, I believe is where she came from. So she's excited to be part of our school district staff, and I know she was hired in August, but I had not had a chance to meet with her, so I was able to have a good conversation with her, and I'm just very pleased that she is part of our staff, and I look forward to seeing good things happening. Okay, so that concludes our announcement. So we will go on with agenda item number 6, association reports, and this is for discussion only. Do we have an association representative? I don't see one. Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 7, informational update from Carson High School Student Council on hosting the Nevada Association of Student Council, NASC 2026 State Conference, and this is for discussion only. And we welcome Tanea Kramer, Carolina Gavica, Kyle Allen, and Leah Vasquez.
Good evening. Good evening, Carson City School District families, staff, and a special thanks to the Board of Trustees for having us here tonight. My name is Kyle Allen. I am the student body president-elect at Carson High School.
And I'm Leah Vasquez, student body vice president at Carson High School.
I am Tanea Kramer. I am going to be the co-leadership advisor for next school year.
And I am Caroline Gabica, and I'm also one of the co-advisors for next year.
And we are super excited to announce that Carson High School will be hosting the 2026 Nevada Association of Student Councils State Conference. We worked super hard to get the bid. It deferred to an open bid this year. And so I'll let kind of Leah talk about some of the major components of the conference. But this is a huge success and a huge win for Carson High School, especially our council. I do want to say I've been joking with Ms. Kramer for the last 2 years that we would be hosting a state conference. And I never thought that I would be here today explaining that I would be the next NASC state chair. And so it's a huge honor. And so the Nevada Association of Student Councils allows for collaboration and diversity amongst student councils across the state of Nevada. And so I'll let Leah talk about the state conference and some of our upcoming plans.
So the state conference is a really big thing. We're really excited. The conference lets us share ideas about other councils that they have, during workshops or even roundtables, right? And what's the last one? And JC groups. And it also just lets everyone bond together, the whole state with everyone's councils. I don't know what else. Set the theme.
Yeah.
The theme is opening doors to leadership, and it's kind of like a Monsters Inc. kind of theme. So yeah.
So I'll just kind of emphasize too that our conference, our planning, we have a huge emphasis on community partnerships, leadership, and education. It's been 20 years since Carson High School has hosted the state conference, and so we have a huge emphasis on that. Our Friday activity at school will be in session. We're going to be having different rotations in different centers at the Capitol Complex, and so the state executive directors and the state board are super excited to be able to learn about leadership and all that happens here in the state capitol, and so that is a huge kind of area that we are highlighting during this 3-day conference.
As welcoming to you guys, we would also love to invite you to come and attend one of our general sessions. We invite speakers from around the country. We'll be smiling very nicely at our superintendent to come and speak as well at that first opening session on that Thursday. And of course, we'll give you more details as we get closer, but we'll definitely be inviting you guys to come and witness the 1,000 to 1,500 Nevada Student Council students. And when you get to see our promo video, you will understand the hype that is this. As Kyle says, they've been kind of playing up the 20-year because it will be my 20-year next year from Carson High School. So they're going to play that up a little bit as well. And were you trying to tell me that we have the clicker for the video? Is that what you were telling me?
It's right on. If you just hit your YouTube, open that up, it should start for you.
When is this going to take place?
So the conference is taking place in 2026, April 16th through the 18th. And so This is the promo video that was shared to the state, so enjoy.
Okay, guys, we're back. Did you miss us? Because we missed you.
In 2006, they hosted Lights, Camera, Leadership in Action, but now they're back and better than ever. As they prepare to open doors and plan an action-packed weekend, get ready for your 2026 state. Get hyped for your state chairs. Meet Student Body President Kyle Allen and Student Body Vice President Leah Vasquez, who are ready to and more at this amazing conference.
Are you ready for State 2026?
That looks exciting.
No, that's pretty much it. We're super excited, and it's going to be a long year of planning, but we're looking forward to it. And so if there's any questions right now, we'll be happy to answer them. I have multiple emails, so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We're super excited to be working with community leaders and community partners over the course of the next year. So yeah, thank you so much for having us here tonight.
Thank you. Board members, do we have questions or comments?
I have a comment. You know, one of the things I do, I work with the State Board of Education, and each year they have a student representative, and it's usually somebody from the South. And I think I was nudging Ananda to nudge her daughter maybe to do it next year. So I'd love to see somebody from the North, maybe from Carson City, put their name forward and collaborate with the State Board of Education. So food for thought.
Michelle, you had a comment too?
I was gonna respond.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was actually going to say thank you for that. We're really excited that, so we're the western region, and because of the north is kind of our rurals, and we're actually very excited about the fact that we have so many people on our Nevada Association of Student Council board this year. Last year they had just one, and this year I think we've got 4. So we're slowly like getting our area onto more of these boards to get Carson High and then our Northern Nevada's name out there for sure.
And I will say, I think one of the students that was nominated for that position is from the West. So it's been out there. So
Wonderful. That's super exciting. Okay, Michelle?
I was just gonna, Kyle, you had made a comment when you were starting that if you had said that this is what things were gonna look like, you were like, I did not see this coming. You might be the only one that didn't see it coming, sir, because you've been amazing in a million ways for forever. So yeah,
thank you.
we've seen this coming. So good job being you.
Thank you.
Molly?
Congratulations, though. Nicely done. I don't know if you guys would be looking for volunteers or, okay, so there might be a few service organizations out there that might be able to, use this as their project or something for that. So just let me know and we can try to see if we can get some adult volunteers to help you.
It's a good idea, Molly. And the Nevada Promise students are always in need of volunteer hours, so keep them in mind. Anybody else? I'm sorry, I thought I saw someone else raise their hand. No, we're good. Richard, did you already?
I really don't have a question, but Kyle, I forget your first name, I'm sorry.
Leah.
Thank you both for the work you've done to get this conference to come to Northern Nevada and Carson City specifically. Kyle, I've been very impressed with you for several years. I've had my eye on you since I watched you do a debate a couple years ago. You're amazing, and so are you. So thank you for all the work you're putting into this and all the work you will have to put into it. And like Molly says, maybe if you need some volunteers to reach out. So thank you, and thank you guys.
Yeah, I also want to thank you guys, and that just says the quality of students that we have in our Carson City School District. So thank you so much for stepping up to the plate, and we look forward to that conference. It looks super exciting. The video is super exciting. All right, well, thank you. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 8, public comment. Do we have in-person public comment? You do. Okay, very good. I was told that we don't have online public comment, so I'm just going to invite you to come up to the podium, and I'm just going to remind you that in making public comment, speakers are asked to come to the table or podium, sign in, speak into the microphone, and identify yourself for the record. Commenters are instructed to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes and not simply repeat comments made by others. And this is for discussion only. Oh, give us a second, please. Okay, we're ready. Go ahead.
Thank you for letting me come here tonight. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and unfortunately, it's not as lighthearted as what we've been hearing so far this evening. I've come here today to ask the school board to amend their policies regarding releasing teachers' records of reprimand and to ask you to make them available for parents for review. I'm asking for
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. If you can please state your name.
Oh, apologies. My name is Sunny Caudill. I'm a parent or guardian to a student at Bordewick and at CMS.
Thank you.
I'm asking for transparency. I'm asking for accountability. We have a middle school teacher in culinary at CMS who has a continuing history of being foul-mouthed, for screaming at her students, for threatening to physically harm them, for throwing chairs at them, and in one instance, she has even struck a child in the back of their head. Her verbal assaults continue even though reportedly she has yet another behavioral plan. As parents, we've spoken up, we've even filed police reports, but the situation continues unchecked. Instead of keeping us in the loop regarding her reprimands, we're being purposefully kept in the dark. And why? Is this to protect her? This specific teacher has been aggressive and violent towards students starting while she was teaching kindergarten and then the 5th grade in the Dayton schools. Then she was given a position here at CMS, which afforded her a fresh set of innocent young victims. The school board refuses to notify the public of its actions regarding her, claiming a privacy policy. My 6th grader, who has severe PTSD, is going into culinary next year, and she is in fear for her safety. This year, she takes a class right next door to the culinary class, and she hears, I won't mention the teacher's name, screaming at her students every single day through the wall. I came here today to beg the board to consider releasing its records of action regarding teachers and to increase the severity of reprimands so that they match the level of crimes being committed against our children. She is a loose cannon, and she needs to be held properly accountable for her violence before a student is seriously injured. She needs some sort of supervision. Please imagine if your 7th grader was being victimized by this dangerous person, and then imagine what you would want to know in order to take necessary action. This teacher is an adult bully who is being paid to verbally and physically assault our children by your board. Today, I'm here to represent all parents and children in our district, and I'm hopeful that you'll consider my requests, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I apologize for that unfortunate situation. I will ask Superintendent Fielding to schedule a time to meet with you. Are you able to provide that? Yeah, okay, so he will provide you with, he'll reach out to you and schedule a time to meet with him. Yes. Okay. So he will be in contact with you to schedule a meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 9, informational update on the Western Nevada College Jumpstart Program in the Carson City School District, and this is for discussion only. And
Mr. President?
I'm sorry?
Would you officially close public comment if there's nothing further?
I'm so sorry, I did not close the public comment. I'm so sorry. My apologies. Okay, so at this point, do we have any additional public comments? We do not. Okay, so then at this point, I will close public comment. Thank you, legal counsel, for pointing that out. Okay, now I will move on to agenda item number 9. And I welcome Dan Carstens and Tasha Fusen, Lauren Stevens, and J.W. Lazari. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Lauren and JW. I have not seen you guys for a while, and I'm so glad to cross paths with you guys. I work with you guys at WNC for many years, and it's so nice to see you guys again. All right.
Okay, before we start, I think I'll just have everyone introduce themselves and tell you what their role is. We'll start with Lauren.
Good evening, and thank you for the invitation to be here. My name is Lauren Stevens. I'm the Director of Academic Advising and Access at Western Nevada College.
And good evening, Tasha Fuson, Chief Academic Officer.
Dan Karstens, Principal at Carson High.
Good evening, JW Lazari, Executive Director, Student Services, Western Nevada College.
We're going to start our presentation with Lauren. She's going to talk to us about Western Nevada College and their Jumpstart program, since they work with several different districts within the region.
We are really grateful for the opportunity to talk about the partnership we have with Carson City School District and Western Nevada College and how that all ties in with dual enrollment. I will be talking about different types of enrollment that we have with dual. One of them will be Jumpstart, concurrent, and then what we call just general dual enrollment. And so we'll cover that more as we go along. And I just want to say that we really enjoy working with Carson High School, and the students are amazing. I have a student inspirational story from someone who was in what we call a concurrent class. They were taking one graphic design class at Carson High School and just getting college credit for that. And it was kind of a funny story because we were preparing for another presentation and we were asked to get these testimonials, and I'm cold calling all these high school students from all these different districts, just hoping for someone to pick up, because we all know high school students screen their phone calls, right? And it just so happened to be a break period, so there was no school happening, so we couldn't recruit the high school counselors for help in getting these testimonials. And I had called so many students. I had already prepared my letdown message because I had been let down so many times already of students not interested in providing a testimonial. And I call this Carson City High School GRC student, and he is so kind to me. And he gets on the phone and he's like, well, I could give you a quote, but I just woke up. And so I'm a little rusty. I really need to think about this. And then he just produces this beautiful statement about his experience with dual enrollment. And I thought, did you really just wake up? Because I swear it was scripted. So I'll just read this off to you. I'll keep it anonymous. But I'm super blessed and privileged to be able to be enrolled in a college class while in high school. While being enrolled in high school, I'm able to get both high school level and college level education. So this is just, a little statement to say that it's about the students, and the presentation itself might be a little bit dry because it's about our interlocal agreement, but the interlocal agreement is what makes it all happen so it gets to the students. So I can imagine everyone here can think of a time or many times of wondering about the future of a young person in their life, and maybe dual enrollment has been a part of that conversation and wonder. So it's great that we have so many options available to our students as they begin to look at what's next for themselves in life. The plan today is to review the agreement to learn about how this partnership works. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all the slides, but the slides are available to the board for viewing. So let's dive in. Overall, I wanted to start with just the scope. So the idea of scope is really valuable to this conversation. WNC works with this very wide scope, and we're looking at all different types of student populations and their needs. And we have skills certificates, certificates of achievement, a variety of associate degrees, and then 2 bachelor degrees. And then when we partner with schools, the scope becomes smaller because we have to look at what are we able to do within this school's needs and this school's scope. So we kind of take everything that WNC can do in this wide perspective, and then we kind of narrow it in for each high school that we work with and customize it against their needs. So at Carson High School, we have the Jumpstart program. We have a little bit of those concurrent classes I was talking about where they're the high school teachers teaching the college content. There's some graphic design and some education. And then we have some auto going on where the students are coming up and meeting with our faculty and doing some auto classes. So that's the gist of it. So currently WNC has 14 of these agreements in place. And the agreements are right now 2 years in length, but we're about to shift to 3-year agreements. And then within that, we have 18 yearly addendums. So the addendums we revise every year and will continue that way to keep track of some of the specific adjustments that need to happen as things shift. And I'm going to kind of move on to some other slides here. So the idea with these agreements is that we're looking for students to be able to satisfy both high school graduation requirements as well as college graduation requirements. When it talks about summer not being a part of it, the classes could still count depending on what we've agreed upon with the school. It's just that we don't include those in the scope of the interlocal agreement. And then the district works with the Nevada Department of Education on a list of approved courses that can count for these satisfying of high school graduation requirements. And so that's not our list, but what we do is our advisors will focus on what is needed for the college side of things. And then we will work closely with the high school counselors so that they can figure out what's needed on the high school side of things to satisfy the high school graduation requirements. And so these are the different types that I was speaking of earlier. So Jumpstart is for students interested in earning a transferable associate's degree or a certificate of achievement. And it's really a prescribed set of courses. So that's in their first year. Their first year is very prescribed. If we're looking at juniors that then will become seniors and they do the full 60 credits. We also have Jumpstart students that are only taking 30 credits that start in their senior year. So we would kind of call that Jumpstart 30, and then we have the Jumpstart 60. So for the Jumpstart 60 students, that first year is fully prescribed and applicable to an associate's degree agreed upon with this high school. And then in their senior year, we start to better customize against what their interests are and where they might be going with their pathway and career plans. But again, those classes are still going to be applicable to the degree type that they are under. And then we have concurrent students, and in this instance, we're talking about what we call kind of a la carte concurrent. So it's students that are taking one-off classes with their high school teacher that's been approved to teach college content. So that would be those graphic communications type courses in the education here at Carson. And the high school teachers that are teaching the college content, we call them affiliates. And then we have general dual students. I think you guys would probably call them dual credit students. And the dual credit students, they're interested in taking, any sort of variety of classes of their choosing. Generally, it's taught by a WNC faculty member, either in person or online. And one thing I wanted to talk about too is just how we sort of prioritize these students. So the Jumpstart students, the second years, because we're customizing what they're taking against their degree plan, and that customization means that they're starting to take classes with our general population, we have to prioritize their enrollment. So our advisors have them as the first students on their plan to advise for enrollment. The first-year students that have the prescribed classes, those prescribed classes are closed. So no other students can enroll in them except for the students that are in that group. And so we do them after that because there's no competition for those courses. The courses are exclusively set aside for them. So, just kind of to sum it up, we have the Jumpstart students that are in pursuit of an associate's. And then we have those independent students, which could be in those one-off concurrent or those general dual credit type courses. And so this really lays out in a chart format the instructional modes that we're looking at. So we could have students that are going in person or online with our campus or their campus, with our instructor or their high school teacher that's qualified to teach college content. And then that, breaks out into the students either being grouped together with only other high school students, or some of them might be combined with high school students and the general public. So the eligibility, I want to emphasize that this is the very bare minimum, and it's not just for Jumpstart, it's for those concurrent students and the general dual students. The real bare minimum that we're looking at is a 2.0 for a GPA, and some of that can change. There's some discussion around it changing even at the NSHE level to where we might have to up that. And the reason why we set that as our very bare minimum is because you have to have a 2.0 to obtain an associate's degree from Western Nevada College. Now, for the Jumpstart program in particular, all of our high schools generally are looking at much more, I say, competitive and higher criteria for students to be in that program. And it's not just GPA based. Usually there's other standards that have to be met because these are supposed to be our high achieving students that are 100% college ready and able to take on this unique type of enrollment and experience while they're in high school. So this section is really about that concurrent enrollment where the high school teacher is teaching the college content, and we call them the affiliates. So the main idea here is that we work closely with those affiliates to ensure that the way that they're teaching in the classroom is of college standard, and it's meeting the college level rigor that's needed for these students to be successful. Because the main idea here is if a student takes what is considered a college level class, we want them to be able to leave their high school and go to another institution if they choose of higher learning and be able to be ready for the next course that comes along, and that this college level course that they've had in high school has prepared them to do that. So this section is about tuition fees. So the Nevada system of higher education sets the fees for all types of dual and concurrent enrollment. So for the purpose of fees, basically the way that it is outlined by the Nevada system of higher education is that if a WNC faculty member is teaching the class, it's a per credit fee. If a concurrent teacher is teaching the class, it's a per course fee. So right now, the way that it's outlined is if a student's taking a WNC faculty taught class, it's 85 per credit, and most classes are 3 credits. If they have been qualified as an FRL student and confirmed as that, then it could be 58 per credit for that student. And that's a tricky one because the fees are set by the Nevada system of higher education, and then we have to figure out how to successfully get that information from the high school so that we could honor that fee structure for FRL. If a student's taking a concurrent taught class with one of their high school teachers, then right now it's $75 per course. So with the faculty taught, there's associated fees with it. With the affiliate taught or concurrent type class, there are not extra associated fees. It's that $75 per course. That's going up. So as you can see, the Nevada System of Higher Education has set out some incremental changes here for the next few years. And so next year, the concurrent fee will go up to $100 per course, and that per credit fee will go up to $87.50 per credit.
Quick question. I saw on the last slide that FAFSA doesn't apply to these. Does the Nevada prepaid tuition help cover that if we've already purchased that as like a parent?
So JW may speak to this.
Yes, in general, any federal financial aid, state financial aid, or any sort of prepaid tuition, a student has to be a high school graduate to access those funds. So usually not, but sometimes fee waivers. So if a student qualifies for like a Native American fee waiver, that could assist a student. Promise you have to have graduated from high school. Usually all financial aid programs, you have to have a high school diploma or a high school equivalency.
Good question. So some of these upcoming slides here, I'm going to really just touch on because it's very detailed about how we enroll students. So this is just the program management piece of how we get students from point A to Z in order to actually be enrolled in that college class and take it. And then this is just a very detailed area of what happens if a student changes their schedule. And I will tell you that it's complicated how these things work because we have like college dates, deadlines, and I guess policies and standards of how we do things. And then we're trying to work that against the high school. And so it's fun. It's fun. That's all I can say there. And this is about student withdrawal procedures. So, and this is more in the case of what we sometimes have is like a student will separate from their high school and maybe move or something, and we have certain protocols in place of how that's supposed to go. Or this particularly applies to students that are in those concurrent classes that are taught by their high school teachers. So sometimes the high school will need to make sort of a quick adjustment and move the student into some other class type, like maybe that's not the right class type for them. And so it's just how we communicate with each other about those school separations or those overall schedule changes with students so that we have something in place as much as reasonably possible to protect the student, because it's really challenging sometimes for students because they look at Infinite Campus and they kind of know what's going on there and they have a good idea of it. But then for the first time ever in their lives, they also have a college transcript that's being developed. And sometimes it's hard for students to really recognize that the impacts of that college transcript can be lasting for them, either in positive or negative ways. So, we really have to work with the schools to ensure that we know what to do with these types of situations. So the next areas are really just these in-depth slides about the responsibilities that we have. We have responsibilities for affiliates if they're teaching the college content on their high school campus, for the district, for the student, and then for WNC. And all of this is outlined in the agreement so that it's clear of each party what their responsibility is in order to effectively run all dual enrollment types and for us to have a good partnership and kind of know who's doing what and when. So that's for the affiliates. This one's for the district. And for our agreements, the district just means, as you would assume, what we have here. School for us is a charter or a private. So that's when we say school, we're referencing a charter or a private school. And Then you can see the student responsibilities and obligations. And then you can see the W&C responsibilities and obligations. So that really concludes our portion of the presentation. I hope this has provided some helpful information for everyone to see the thoughtful steps that we take to contribute to the success of each partnership and to our students, ultimately, our shared students. And now I'm going to pass it off for your part of the presentation.
Thank you. Tasha Fuson for the record. So within our school district, we have created an accepted practice document that helps us guide our internal practices. You will find that in your board packet as well. It is part of the dual enrollment jumpstart program evaluation report that I gave you. It's one of the appendices. But this basically, like I said, make sure that we have consistent practices. One, at both sites when we had Pioneer had its own program, but also to make sure from year to year that we know exactly how we did business the year before. So we're just going to talk about a couple of pieces of that. If you would like to find it, it's Appendix D, page 23 of this report, if you want to actually see what I'm referring to in your documents. So the areas that I wanted to, actually, I'll walk you through it. If you find that on the very first page, it goes through the scope, the responsibilities, approval authority, and definitions. Those are just really, they're not as important as the fact that what the contents are, so I'm going to skip over those. But if you look at 5.0 on page 23, this gives you the specific guidelines that we use for placement and qualifications for Jumpstart. So like Lauren said, all districts have been able to make their own entrance requirements. For us, we have to have a junior or senior on track to graduate. Our students who are eligible to apply for the Jumpstart program have to have completed Algebra 2 with a 75% or higher, or Algebra 2 honors with a 70% or higher. And they have to have a 3.0 in their high school ELA courses. So we do have the higher GPA requirement than Lauren was talking about. So I won't read through all of those, but that 5.0 portion, 5.1 portion talks about those requirements for each one of the different groups that we had. In 5.2, this talks about the courses. So as Lauren was saying, that we have very prescribed courses that a first-year Jumpstart student takes, that lists them, right? So they don't get choices, whether they're a first-year junior or they're a first-year senior. They're taking those courses, and the reason why they're taking those courses is because that's what covers the requirements that will fulfill their high school graduation requirements. Right, so we have to have, for instance, like at Econ 100 and Political Science 101, it fulfills their government and their economics requirements. So we've been very strategic about the courses that we've picked to make sure they match what we can give them credit for so that they can get their high school diplomas, right? Because first and foremost, they're a high school student. So we need to make sure they graduate. So that's those. Yeah, go ahead.
So then for the English, math, and econ, are those all taught by high school teachers?
We have in the past had them taught by high school teachers, and when we can't supply those teachers, then WNC steps in and supplies those teachers. So it depends on the year. Many of you know Mr. Macy, who retired last year. I think he taught English 101 and 102 for us for, I think, 2 years. Jennifer Chandler, if you know Jenny Chandler at the high school, she's taught dual credit courses for us in the past. We've had a few, so it depends on in each year. But if the high school himself does not have an affiliated instructor that's been approved by WNC, then they have sent teachers over to us. So it depends. And then to go further on in this, if you look at 5.3, it talks about attendance and grading. So we have very specific pieces that our students have to take into account. For instance, they're to keep a 2.0 to remain eligible. We do have to take attendance, those types of things. So that's addressed in that area. And then on the page 26, it goes into payment. This is something gets updated. Actually, this accepted practice is updated every single year because we have to, depending on what funding we have, how we're going to pay for that, and whether or not we're going to pass on some of those costs to students, which we have changed in the past. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But so this has actually changed. The reason why I'm saying this is you're looking at the current agreement that this year's students are under, but we've already updated it for next year's students. But it talks about payment, 5.5 talks about textbooks, 5.6 talks about transportation. So we don't provide busing to students, but we will provide them a jump around Carson pass if need be. And again, it just then goes further that the fact that we revise this every single year. And if you look at page 27, you can actually see all the dates and the amount of times this has been revised. So that's our accepted practice document. Like I said, that talks about our internal processes. Let's talk about the parent contract. This is another piece that is in your packet. It's on the very last page. It's page 38 of 38. Because I'm often asked, and have been when I was the principal of the high school, like, parents want to know, for instance, well, how come they can't have parental logins to the grade book at Western Nevada? Well, because they're parents and because these are college students. So we make sure that we go over families with that when they apply for the program. The intent is that the students are of the mature level, that they can handle college classes, and that the parents should be asking their students to share with them their grades, right? Like that's the expectation. So these things on this Jumpstart parent contract, again, I won't go through that with you, but those are the things that have come up as like frequently asked questions or things throughout the years that families have said, but how come this? Or if I would have known this, I would have done something differently, right? So we've put those in that contract so that we are sure that our parents know what they're signing up for and what the students are signing up for when they apply for this program. So that's where that came from. Okay. All right, tuition costs. So Lauren has talked to you about the fee structure, and I wanted to make sure you knew how we've paid for this. I only put the last 3 years, last 2 years, this year and next year. In the past, prior to 22, 23, we had a designated grant that paid for all of the Jumpstart program, right? So we applied for that every single year, and we got funding for it at the state, so it didn't hit the district's general budget at all. But in 22, 23, that changed. So the overall cost for our school district that year, you can see up there, was just under $240,000. 178,000, a little over 178,000 came from ESSER grants, college and career ready portion of ESSER grants. And we did pay as a district where it says Ed Services, that 61,000 that came from the Ed Services, my budget that I managed. So I had to make up the difference there. In 23, 24, we paid as a district, right, for the whole cost of the Jumpstart program. And this year in 24, 25, we were able to pay for the program first semester from ESSER, but we were just notified on March 23rd, I think was the date, that we could no longer expend those ESSER funds. And so we as a district are now going to have to pick up those second semester costs. So this was inaccurate. That came out after I did this slide. So we will be paying for that.
Really quick. So for the 24, 25, it says 77 students. Is that the total students or just the ones that are covered under the ESSER?
That is the total of students that are in the Jumpstart program, not the concurrent or the dual enrollment, the other students, right? Those are your, what'd you call them, like 30, Jumpstart 30 or Jumpstart 60 students, right? That we consider full-time Jumpstart students, full-time college students. We do have more students involved in that because we have, again, those students who are taking the graphic design class, that's not in that 77. The costs are, but I just wanted you to know how many students that was in terms of full-time enrollment.
Okay, so
that is the cost that we will have. The 77 students was just an aside to remind me to tell you we had 77 full-time students represented in there, but that is the whole cost of the program.
So is that why the numbers would be different on page 5 of the 38?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you for pointing that out because I made myself a note and then didn't remember why I did it. So in 25, 26, and this was specifically why I did it because the estimate for 25, 26 is going to be 337,000, and that is accounting for 30 extra full-time students, and it's because 3 years ago, we started a Jumpstart Academy, which no longer exists, where we were trying to give an opportunity for students to start the Jumpstart program in 9th grade, where they'd take one class in 9th grade, 2 classes in 10th grade, then 4 classes, I think, in their junior year and 4 classes in their senior year. It was our attempt to get them started early, and we did, and it was fairly successful. But through our discussions in our advisory group, it was decided that we didn't feel that we actually needed to onboard them that early. And what was occurring is we were unfortunately racking up too many electives for the students. Like, they can only earn so many elective classes towards their associates, or even that are transferable if they're going to go to a 4-year university, right? So trying to figure out what can a 9th grader take that's really not going to be too academically robust, because we're obviously not going to put them in Math 26 and Math 127, which is the equivalent to trig, all right, or put them in English 101, 102. You know what I mean? So it was literally, we were putting them in classes like communications, which again, a good course, but by the time you're adding those up, then you're just overstacking them on electives. So we decided that that was not something that we were going to continue beyond that year. So this is the group of students that started, and so next year is going to be our pinnacle in terms of the number of students in the program, and then it's going to start going down again because we have put a cap of about 30 students per grade level. Right, so that I wanted to make sure. So thank you for pointing that out, Molly, because I didn't write myself good notes to remind myself why I'd actually put those numbers on there. So I appreciate that. Okay, so those are the costs. Book fees have also changed over the years. So again, prior to 22-23, our grant covered the cost of all books. I will tell you, for the last 10 years that we've had this program, 11 years, I've tried to get us out of the book business. The book business is awful when it comes to trying to help kids with college books. So, but we did have grant funds, so we did it, which means we, as the district, our team actually did all the purchasing and the dissemination of books and the collection of books and the return of books, and then try to get refunds and all this other kind of stuff that we went through. It was really challenging. In 22-23, again, that changed because we decided as a district that we could not afford that continued cost not having the grant available, right? So then we turned the cost of books back over to the families. That's when our foundation stepped in and said, you know what, we will take on the cost of books. So that was wonderful, but I don't think they expected to cost them $30,000 that year, right? So that's the cost up there. It was a little over $30,000 for 67 students to have books purchased for them. So after that year, again, wonderful that they jumped in, or they stepped in. We had a conversation about that was not really sustainable and what could be done. And we went on needs-based, right? So then students could apply and say, yes, I need support, or I need help in paying for my books. And then the foundation supported those students. So in 23-24, they supported 65 students in purchasing books covering $11,900, right? So that breaks it down by semester. Then Western Nevada came to the table with us and said, you know what, we realize this is really being a hardship on all of our students, and we're really going to make a really concerted effort to try to go to a lot more open ed resources, cut down on book costs for our families and our students, right? So this is where you see a big difference in terms of the cost of books for this school year. So our foundation ended up supporting 25 students purchasing books that totaled $4,156. So less than 5,000. And that is really attributed to the fact that, again, that the college has tried really hard to manage those costs. So I got to give kudos to the college in terms of working with us on that. So the foundation allocates $20,000 each of the last 3 years is what they've allocated to pay for textbooks and support for Jumpstart students. So it was significantly, as you see, significantly less this year. All right, so before we hit our conclusion, I guess this is a really good time to kind of turn it over to all of you if you have specific questions for things that we've not covered.
Questions from the board?
Thank you for the presentation. I do have several concerns. $337,695 per year, that's going to go up steadily each year. My concern is, can we financially continue this program the way we're doing it now, especially seeing that we're facing a $3.5 million, at least $5.3 million deficit this year, which, in my opinion, is only going to increase every year. So I'm just wondering about the sustainability of the program.
I am so glad you asked that, Mr. Varner, and I am prepared for your question. So I am very happy about this. So I think what we really need to think about is the fact that, again, going back to my second thought of why I was going to put student count on there, is that we have 107 students that are full-time students taking WNC classes. If those students were with us taking classes at our high school, we would actually have to provide 4 additional teachers to the high school. So the cost that we're paying, now you add the cost of what it would take to pay for 4 additional teaching allocations, and it costs approximately just under $100,000 per teacher. So it would cost us about $400,000 to provide the extra staffing to teach these students full-time classes versus them taking at the college.
Can I jump in on that really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
I had a follow-up.
Okay, yeah, but I'm hoping this will, don't lose your thought. So for the juniors, though, that are taught by high school teachers, they're still in there, and those high school teachers are still there. So wouldn't we be able to minus them out of the 107? Also, but before I do that, though, too, who pays the affiliate teachers' cost? Does WNC or does Carson City School District for the juniors?
So right now, primarily the juniors are being taught by our faculty. And I believe the one that is an affiliate is an English teacher. And for the affiliates, they're employed by the district. They're not employed by us. Technically, they're more or less considered a volunteer in terms of our relationship to them because they're an employee of the district. And so they have just chosen to do this within their school district. Now, depending on the school district that we work with, we do honor a small stipend, but because they're a full-time employee of the district, that's their primary salary.
So, and in our particular case, we're talking about it being 1, maybe 2 classes for that teacher out of a normal 6-period day or 5-period day, depending on what campus they're on.
I'm wondering, you mentioned having to hire 4 additional teachers, but with those 4 additional teachers that you hire, or would have to hire, would they benefit more students than just these 107?
That's a good way to think of it, but what we typically do, and we actually do a really good job staffing our schools, so I hate to say that on someplace where it can be recorded. If you work for a different district, say the 2 larger ones in this state, the way your school gets staffed for a high school is, for instance, in Washoe County, you take your overall enrollment and you divide it by 27, and that gives you how many teachers you get. So that's where I'm saying if you looked at 107 teachers or 107 students that are not taking classes at the campus, that now take classes at the campus, if you divide that number by 27, that's basically, in essence, 4, right? 4 teachers. So that's what that means. And that would be in order to do, not that 4 teachers are going to teach, I don't know how to say it, what I'm going to put, you figure those 4 teachers are teaching 6 classes each. Can they technically teach more than 107 students? I mean, I guess depending on what you want to set those class sizes at, but that's how you pretty much figure out allocations, if that makes sense. I think Vegas uses a 30-to-1 ratio. At least they used to use a 30-to-1. It might be higher now, but you know what I mean? So if you're at a school of 2,400, they're going to give you, well, what is 2,400 divided by 30? I was doing pretty good until I tried to do math. 80. They're going to give you 80 teachers, right? 80 allocations. Is that correct? No? Okay. He's a math teacher. I was like, do my math for me. That was correct. Okay, good. Mental math. So that would be 80 allocations or 80 teachers, right? So then if you remove those 70 or those 107 students off that, then you would lose 4 teachers. That's why I'm saying it's equivalent to 4 teachers. Does that make sense? Now, when you're doing an actual master schedule, could you probably fit more than that? But potentially. But those students need to take 6 classes each or 7 classes each at the high school, and there would be approximately 25 students per class. So you would need 4 classes just to cover them for 1 period, and then they would each need 7 periods, so basically 28 classes, and then teachers only teach 6 classes apiece. Like, I can do the math for you on a board, but yes, in essence, that's what you need to cover all of that. Does that make sense? Okay, so 107 students that have to take 7 classes each, right? That's going to tell you how many seats there are.
This
I've
is
done
why we
master
hire
scheduling. I was going to say I've done master
administrators to run the
scheduling for
district.
20 years. So trust me on that one, right? But that's what that's equivalent to.
I do trust you. And I did get the concept there. So, and then when I looked through this packet that was provided, one of the recommendations was to expand the access to dual credit opportunities for all students. And that's probably not realistic, is it?
Correct. So this is done by an external evaluator. We've started doing external evaluation of this program back when it was grant funded, and we've just continued that on just so that we have that historical data. So that's what you're looking at. So every year as part of that external program review, it's not done by our district, it's done by somebody outside of the district, right? That's recommendations that they come up with. We're not required to follow those. It's just from an external perspective, what they think would benefit students best would be that.
So this, in this packet, the recommendations for the program improvement are not necessarily all of ours, this school district's, correct? Is that what I just said?
So this external evaluation, this is an
Okay.
external evaluation. Again, just from a historical perspective, anytime you typically have external grants that pay for a program, you usually have an external evaluator, right?
Okay.
So it's not internally, we're judging ourselves how we do. So that's why we started with an external evaluator 11 years ago. Even though it's not grant funded currently, well, it was, right, Part ESSER, we continued that external evaluator perspective. So the external evaluator is just looking at the data from a non-internal perspective and saying, hey, here's all your data, here's what I'm doing, and here's recommendations I would make from this external perspective. We are not required or obligated to follow any of them. It's just, hey, based on your data, here's what you should think about next steps.
And some of them we're already doing, correct? Yeah. I
Yes,
believe so. Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go to the email that I sent to y'all in February. Okay. But before on that one, so my question is, if, like WNC is part of NSHE, why wouldn't all of NSHE institutes and the WUI accept all of the credits that they take in Jumpstart? Because I'm learning that they don't. So like if a student receives their associates from WNC in the Jumpstart program and then they transfer to UNR, they're having to take some of these credits over again because UNR isn't accepting them. And either is, yeah. I did. I heard that just 2 nights ago.
I can answer that. So when a student receives an associate's degree from any community college in the Nevada system of higher education, they earn 60 credits, and those 60 credits can then be applied to their bachelor's degree at the universities. Where students get tricked up is if they change their pathways, because they might not have taken the prerequisites to get them on the right pathways. So a student maybe got an Associate of Arts, maybe they didn't get the right math pathways or the right engineering courses, and that might delay their progress to graduation. But really, we use Common Course numbering in NSHE, so courses are accepted. So I'd love to hear the examples.
In all honesty, that parent was supposed to be here today.
Yeah.
Tonight's meeting to give us that, because I wasn't taking notes. So, but I will most definitely, and then I'll send.
Yeah, because NSHE takes it pretty seriously about our transfer processes, and there's a whole transfer articulation agreements that are built at the NSHE level, so students don't get caught in these sort of situations. So, and that's why we have Common Course numbering. So if you take English 101 at WNC, that's English 101 at UNLV or UNR or TMCC. So that's really our goal, is to make the transfer process seamless, but each student is unique, following a different pathway. So we hear stories like, I didn't get everything I needed. Well, you might have gotten everything you needed at the time, but if your pathway changed or if your degree program changed at the universities, like now there's maybe new prerequisites we didn't know about when you were a junior. And now you're at UNR and there's a new pathway.
I have a question about that because, way back in the day, when I was student body president at TMCC, one of the things we always advised everybody was to get transfer agreements.
Yep.
And I would hope that we're doing that with our high school students, because if we are giving them academic advising and giving them that transfer agreement, and here's your catalog, put your name in it right now, do not lose this. And then when that happens, they have something to
Go back on.
go back on.
So we still use transfer agreements. That is the common practice to help students stay on the right pathway. The tricky part sometimes for high school students is like we're working sometimes within some confinements for them to get all of the things that maybe are on that transfer agreement because we got to do it during the day or whatever the case might be. But that is the pathway. That is how we advise students who are transfer bound.
So Tasha Fuson, for the record, I can tell you I've been working with this program for 11 years and I have never heard once that something has not transferred, with the exception, there's an exception, and that is sometimes that if a student takes classes in a certification program, right? There are courses that even with our own accepted practice and within our own processes, like we only give a 0.025 GPA bump for a student that's not transferable to a four-year college, where the students get a 0.05 GPA bump for one that is. Some of the courses are not transferable because they are certification-specific programs. For instance, if you're taking auto classes at Western Nevada, those are not going to transfer to a four-year college. They don't have auto programs. So that is when that has occurred. But I have never heard of an actual student who's worked on an associate's degree and gotten an associate's degree not having credits being transferred. I will agree with JW, right? I said that right.
Yep.
I was thinking I flip-flopped your initials, sorry.
You're good.
JW. But I've heard, again, as he stated, we have had families that have reported back concerns that, well, my student got this general associate's degree, but then they decided they wanted to get a bachelor's of science degree. Well, it's not that the college, the university won't take the courses, they do. It's simply that they don't apply to that degree path, as you were stating. So that's where I was talking about having surplus or too many elective credits. They give them credits. They have them, but no, they're considered elective credits. They don't go towards their actual degree because they're not taken in the right area. Another challenge that we've had families that have expressed concern about, which is why we work so hard with the college to really dictate what courses the students can take in that year one, is the fact that we try to be as global as we can in terms of the classes that they're taking for what degree programs exist out there. So you might hear double dipping. A lot of students who go to a four-year college, right, they'll say, well, I have to take 9 humanities credits or 3 humanities credits, but I know I'm going to get my degree in economics, or this is probably not a good example, social work, and if I take this course, I can count it as part of my humanities, but I can also apply it to this particular, my degree field, right? So I can double dip on that class. When a student doesn't know what they're going to do for their four-year degree, or if they change their mind, they often lose their ability to double dip or double apply a course, because that is exactly what you were stating. Like, it depends on if they change their career path. And we do counsel students about that, because that is the number one complaint that we had from families coming back and going, hey, yeah, great, my kid got an associate's degree. It still took them 3 years to get their bachelor's degree because they didn't know what they really wanted to do once they got to the four-year college. So we are very mindful of that, and we make sure that's a critical component of their academic advising. And again, why we actually got rid of the academy piece, because we were overstacking too many electives, and it really wasn't doing the kids any good by the time they got done with us.
Tasha, thank you for making that clarification, because I know that there was at one point in time, there was a misconception that students were not able to transfer their classes from their Jumpstart program. And based on my understanding and based on what you're clarifying, is that that was definitely a misconception, because from what we see, I mean, the academic advising is thorough in explaining the students, what classes will transfer and whatnot. And I also am glad that you mentioned that, because here on the dual enrollment program, the sentence concludes by saying credits may or may not transfer to another institution. So based on what JW and you just said, that may be the reason why some classes may not transfer, because they changed their degree or because of various components or various.
And it's really not that they won't transfer, it's how they're applied.
How they're applied,
How they're
exactly.
applied. They can transfer, but they might not be degree applicable based on the student's new goals.
So I remember when I was involved in that program, one of the things that we constantly reminded the students is like, you got to do your homework. It's like you need to check with the institution that you are transferring to ensure, that they will take or how they take how they count the credits that they took through the Jumpstart. So,
and I would just add too that sometimes, because we're trying to prescribe a first year to potentially 30 students, you're looking at trying to prescribe something that works for most everyone in most every way. But sometimes where it could get tripped up is like with sequencing. So, if they take Math 126 in in their junior first semester and then 127, and then they take 181 in their senior year, well, they can't even take a high-level physics course until they get done with their calculus 1. And so by then they're already like getting close to the conclusion of their Jumpstart program. You know, so some of it is just like for these heavy STEM pathways when there's, you know, abundance of high-level sciences with intensive prerequisites. Sometimes they're just not able to do all of that within the sort of parameters of the Jumpstart program and the time frame of the Jumpstart program. So, you know, there's just a lot of considerations, like you were saying.
Thank you. All right, another question I had too was, so online. I know for the juniors, they attend at the high school, but some of those courses are offered WNC online. And the students sign up for those courses and they don't know that until, you know, a week or two before school starts. And so if they don't want to take courses online, because they want to be physically at the school for the entire day. But by the time they learn that it's an online course, it's too late to change because there really isn't anything else for them to take at the high school because of the affiliate instructor and whatnot. So I would ask maybe that when because I see that this interlocal agreement expires June 30th of 2025, that if we kind of look in that and see, at least for the juniors that don't drive, you know, because not all of them drive, you know, that are taking them at the high school, because, right, all the juniors who are taking Jumpstart are at the high school, that their courses that they are taking are not offered online. Because that's, for instance, what I think I mentioned that with my son. So he signed up for his 5 classes. He then gets it, and a couple weeks before school started in August, it turned to be online. And so now, you know, he's, I think at school for 3 periods and then at home for online classes on 2. And that wasn't, you know, and I know within the parent agreement, I don't really have much to say, but that isn't something that, that I would have signed him up for, I don't think. And at this time, it was probably a little too late. So I would ask on that, you know, that we be aware of what is being online. And also, I just don't know that a 16, 17-year-old coming out of COVID and whatnot, that we were anticipating having online classes. So I don't know if you were aware of that, if that happens. And it's not really, school districts, but it was a WNC thing.
Just to clarify, you're saying it was in his junior year that it was the online? Okay, because the prescription of classes in the junior year really should be in person with our faculty. Now, you know, like, let's say the faculty decide that there's a week where things are moving online for some sort of reason, that could happen. But I mean, the classes are at the high-tech center, and they're intended to be in person. So it was like the whole semester was online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah. So, and then the other thing I mentioned with the books as well. So the foundation's paying for the books. Then you physically have the book, and if the student goes to sell the book, who gets the money for the book?
So I did speak to some of our foundation members and was told that is not their intent to ever try to recall money from students, that their intent as a foundation was to do scholarships, and they intended it to be just like any student who got a scholarship for something else. You know, they would never be asked to return the money for that scholarship. So that was a decision the foundation made, and they have no desire to collect books or collect fees for people to sell their books back and give them money back.
And just to note, that's the standard financial aid operation for regular college students. If you receive a scholarship above and beyond your tuition and you use that to go buy your book and then you sell it back, you get that money back. Like, you don't return it to the donor.
Okay. And then I also, a question was too, is if a student doesn't finish the Jumpstart program, you know, they go for a year, they go for a semester, and they don't finish it, is there anything that we can add into the student-parent contract, you know, that kind of says maybe at some point then there is a financial burden on that family for not completing what they, I mean, I don't know. I just think that, you know, the school district paid 100%, and now they went and then they said, oh, well.
So
we're not gonna do it.
just recently we're paying, but before that it was grants. So that has been a challenge in the past, like when we're grant funding, that we're not going to actually charge people and make money off of a grant, like to recoup that money. If the board wills it and wants us to change our practice and wants us to penalize those students in some way, isn't it, I guess, to try to incentivize them to continue the program, I think is what you're trying to say, right?
Accountability.
Then we can consider that as a practice if that's the board's will. I don't particularly agree with it. I think that the accountability piece is that they take the failing grades. They do. I mean, it would add burden to our staff to then go and try to send out bills to families and say you're going to now pay this back as a penalty. We've never done that as a not-for-profit K-12 institution, charging families for things like that. We do charge them for like lost and stolen books, I guess, but I don't know. But if that's the will of the board, we can research it and see if that's legal.
And my thought on that, Molly, would be we're paying for teachers, and if somebody fails a class, we don't ask them to reimburse us for their portion of that teacher's salary. You know what I mean? I think it would be problematic. I'm not sure how we would.
Yeah, but that you would,
Force that.
they end with a college or a high school diploma. Here, they enter a jumpstart program in hopes to get their associate's degree, and then they drop out. And on whose dime are they dropping out on?
Yeah.
Is what, you know, it's no longer a grant, so it's the dime of the school district or the taxpayer.
I think one of the things that really, when we're looking at this, and you know, there's all this work going on in the state with Portrait of a Learner programs and competency-based education, and really what is that going to look like for our secondary students as we go forward. And I think that Jumpstart is a great option for our students who are going into trades and going to be going into, you know, university system in Nevada. And then I think we also need to have that robust AP program for those kids who are going to go to those Ivy League schools that are wanting to go out of state, and they know they want to go out of state, so why would they do Jumpstart? And I think the thing I worry the most about is as we have these discussions about budget cuts and constraints, it's really going to limit what options are available to our students. And I think that hopefully our governor, our legislators are paying attention to that, because if we want these kids to have the best and the brightest future possible, we have to give them the tools to attain that. And it's going to be something that we can't do if we don't have the means to support these systems. And so I'm thankful that there is a program like this. I wish there was a program like this when I was in school. And I hope that we're able to maintain it and continue it. I think that probably listening to some of these conversations, yeah, we need to probably strengthen academic advising and get some transfer agreements and really strengthen that and make sure people know. You know, when I was going to school, I knew, what was it? Western traditions. And so you could either take this class and this class, or you could have to take these or these, but there were only so many different ways you could alternately go around some of those standards. And so if you did A, B, you were going to be taking the math and the science or whatever. But those are conversations that we have. And with high school kids, we have to remember we are training them to be college students. And so the accountability piece, we all know we deal with issues of high school and middle school kids every day. And that responsibility piece is something that we're cultivating and working with our school administrators and our teachers and our families with. And I think that to strengthen it, it's going to be these kind of conversations and then putting things in place to strengthen what we have and to really advocate our policymakers to make sure that we have the means to continue these programs.
Richard?
Yeah, I agree, Mike. Thank you. My concern is I would like to see, let me start by saying I support the program. But my concern is I would like to see even more students have access to this type of thing. And we're capped at 30 students per class now. I mean, not class, but
We were trying to come up with a way to solidify knowing what the cost of the program was going to be every single year, right? So instead of it just being, in the past, we've been so fortunate to have enough grant funding, et cetera, that we've just said every student who applies, who meets the minimum criteria gets in. And with the budget concerns that you've expressed, as well as other board members throughout our budgeting process, we determined that we would say, okay, we want to continue the program, but we want to make sure that we have basically a cap on what it's going to cost the district, which is where that number of 30 per incoming class.
is there any possibility of grants in the future, or are they kind of done?
I think in the current political culture, it's highly unlikely
I would
that we're
agree
going
with
to
you.
see any
Yeah.
additional funding come across that's going to support us in that. I could be wrong, though. I wouldn't want to count on it.
I agree with you, but if we wanted to open it up to more students, could there be a sliding scale maybe put in for financial assistance to the students who were wanting to
So
get
if we
involved?
started charging them, is that what you're saying?
At least maybe partially.
One of the things that I want to make sure that everyone thinks about is the fact that this program is currently basically cost neutral. So the funding that we get for those students to attend our schools, we basically, yes, are turning around giving it to the college. But in essence, if we want to start charging them, so that, I mean, I guess we could. I would want us to consider what that means. Like, we're going to charge students to go to take degree program classes that we're, in essence, already receiving funding to pay for. Even though it's not in grant funding, but it is in terms of the money that we get for per pupil for them attending our schools. I mean, it's just something to think about. Like, it's really currently a cost neutral program for us.
And I know there's at least several districts that don't pay anything towards it. So,
I was going to say it's too bad we're not able to use the Nevada Promise to help us with, getting the students to start taking these classes earlier while they're still in high school. But anyway, I was looking at the data, the Appendix B page, and I just wanted to point out how I'm pleased to see that the students that are in free and reduced lunch are a group of students that are participating in this program, as well as the students that are engaged. So I am very pleased to see that we are giving all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background, an opportunity to excel and to get ahead in their education. So I'm very pleased to see that. And then I also see that our numbers on the Hispanic have almost matched the Caucasian. That's something that we had been keeping an eye on, and I'm grateful for the administration. That you are giving all students the opportunity to excel and do well.
Now, President Ramirez, I'll let you know I intentionally didn't go through any data in this presentation because Principal Carstens is just ready to go through his Carson High School State of the School presentation as soon as this agenda item is done. And he always, or the principal of the school has always gone through, like, here's my AP data, here's my Jumpstart data, here's how well our students are doing. So I just didn't want to duplicate efforts.
Gotcha.
So just
Well,
as an FYI.
he's already getting a cheer from me.
There you go.
No, but thank you very much for all this work, and again, thank you to WNC and to to our high school administration for working very closely in making sure that this program continues going strong. And I think that quite a few of us from the board have had our children benefited from this program. So I thank you. I thank the school district. I thank the WNC for, giving my daughter an opportunity to excel. And thanks to this program, she's already, she's only 24 years old, and she's already in the workforce, building a building at UNR for those students that are, coming on the pipe. So I feel that this program is definitely a program that we want to continue supporting for all those students that are coming on the pipe because we owe it to them. So thank you. Anybody else? Any other additional comments?
Just add some things as well. I have one son who went through the program already and graduated it in 23. And he was one that we pushed through, like Mike had said, knowing that I've always known he's my blue collar kid. And at least he was definitely not going to be academic after high school. So at least when you go into that field, you have this in your back pocket. And so his reason for doing the program was different versus I have a son who will be starting the program next year who is just chomping at the bit, eager to, I want to get into college. I want to be done. I want to start my career. And he's got goals that he cannot get to fast enough. And so for that, for him, it's kind of an Achiever Express Pass. And then I think to my sister, for example, 30 years ago, nothing like this existed. And she was another one who was eager to get out. And so she just took her GED. And then she's got her master's degree and is doing incredible. But there wasn't a path like this available for whatever reason you have for wanting to be a part of this, to be able to take advantage of it and for the countless hours and the effort that goes into preparing and not just making this program available, but then the selection process of who can go into it and finding the funding for it and securing the amount of work represented in this little packet is not unnoticed. So thank you as a parent who has 2 kids who have taken advantage of it and 2 who didn't for other reasons as well. Thank you for what you've done and what you prepare and for being willing to work through the kinks of continually polishing it and ironing it out so that it can remain as effective as it can be.
Excellent. So if there are no other questions or comments, I thank you very much for your presentation and for all the work that you put into this program. So thank you. And your partnership, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And at this point, we are going to take a 5-minute recess. going to continue with our board meeting, and we will continue with agenda item number 10, annual report from Carson High School on programs, supports for students and celebrations, and this is for discussion only. Welcome back, Mr. Dan Carson.
Do you mind if I stand? I've been sitting for a long time.
Not at all.
They wanted me to do an interpretive dance. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I may sing a tune or two, but we'll just
go for it.
we'll just do this. So for the record, Dan Carson's principal of Carson High School. First off, thank you for having me here, everybody. And before I start, I just want to say I have three of my biggest fans in the back corner here, and a lot of this stuff I couldn't do without those three. I mean, there's a few more. We got Dr. Molden in front also. I don't know if she's my fan, but she's but the incredible amount of work that they put into our school, I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything about them. So thank you all very much. All right, so this first one, this is our mission. We did this a little bit, worked on this last year. And we finally made a poster, and these will be hanging in our school soon-ish. But it's really opportunity, growth, success. And anytime there's so many mission statements that are, 10 lines long, nobody knows what they are. But this one is really, if you think of it, opportunity, growth, success. That's what we try to just frame everything we do around. And if you look, I just want to focus in on that opportunity component by ensuring high levels of learning for all, and that's really going to be going where Mr. Fielding, do you need a yonder pouch?
Good one.
I tell you,
one.
I tell you. Yeah, sorry, I know he's my boss, and yeah. Anyway,
Do you need a raise?
Nice, perfect, perfect. All right, we get derailed. Anyway, the opportunity component by ensuring high levels of learning for all. When we talk about high levels, that is at grade level or higher, and it's learning for all. That is any student that is going to be an independent adult, and so that's just what I wanted to focus in on for that one there. And these are kind of the things that we'll be going over today. The big three: AP, Jumpstart, CTE. We even snuck a library slide in there too. If you know Ananda, we gotta get those libraries in there. Accreditation. We went through accreditation. Don't know if you've heard or not. I mean, that was a little tiny process. Yonder pouches, PLCs and MTSS, professional learning communities, and multi-tiered system of supports. And then our Pioneer merger that we'll just kind of go over real quick. So AP Advanced Placement Program, I think the biggest thing that, there's a couple things. First off, I know President Ramirez talked about it earlier by pointing out some of that data where our Hispanic population is starting to come in line with the population of Carson High School. And another part that I really want to point out is that if you look at our levels, if you look at the total percent of total AP students with a score of 3+, if you look at our scores from last spring, it's going back to that pre-COVID level. And there's not a whole lot of things that have risen to that, but I do want to point out that our AP exams have done that. And so if you look at also the number of kids that are taking AP classes, the number of students that are enrolled in them, and I'm sure most people know that AP is just extremely rigorous, extremely high level, and there's a lot of our average scores are higher than not just the state average, but the global average. So we have a lot of high level teachers that are doing that with a lot of high level students. Jumpstart Career. This is some of the data that goes along with the previous presentation. I wish my eyes were a little bit better and I can see those a little bit more. Yeah, I got my glasses over there. But if you look at that, the program GPA 3.51, I know that some of the comments were, what happens if a student doesn't finish, or if they fail, or if they drop out of it. Not very many students do. The majority of students will finish that. And so I think it's one of those programs where they see that opportunity and they do take advantage of that opportunity. And looking at that again, if you look at the Carson High demographics versus the Jumpstart demographics, it's starting to really match up with what we have in our program. And we did add on the Jumpstart career this year. And that was for an auto program there at WNC. So we had 16 students that are in that auto program and doing a little bit more of that hands-on component. But a lot of those, the skills that they learn there will lead right into high-paying jobs here right in Carson City. So it's a great program.
Will they be able to get a certificate for that? Like when they finish?
I don't, like right now, if you're a senior, I don't know if they're going to get a full certificate. It's a good start for them, and then they can roll into that program once they graduate high school and everything. So we don't, at its current inception right now, it's not necessarily a certification program, but it's a taste of what they can do and what they can get as soon as they're done. And we are exploring some ideas to expand that Jumpstart career. Currently looking at the construction trade. I don't know if you've noticed or not, there's a lot of houses that are being built. And I know that a lot of some of the older houses that are around are in need of remodeling. And so there's all sorts of opportunities for that to happen. CTE. CTE is, not sure if you know, but it's huge in our building. There are, just like it says up there, 15 CTE pathways. We have all sorts of CTSOs, which are career and technical student organizations. You heard about one of those earlier this evening. Trustee Peterson talked about the Entrepreneurs in Action, and that was a great collaboration with some of our community members with FBLA, the Future Business Leaders of America, and our business and marketing class. So our CTE programs are great. And one thing I do want to point out there is the graduation rate for our CTE completers. Last year alone was 97%. So pretty incredible, pretty incredible. And all the rest of that data is right on up there. I won't read all of it to you. So when we went through accreditation, this is one of the things that the company sent to us, the guy that did our accreditation review. And these are a lot of the words that when we had our student panel, our parent panel, our staff panel, these are some of the words, and our admin panel and a leadership panel, all sorts of panels, lots of people. These are some of the words that came from it. It was student-centered, community, extracurricular, small town, opportunities, approachable. Pioneer made the cut, right? They had all sorts of people talk about that, and they mentioned that component in our accreditation as well. And these are some of the things that we got. This was our panel feedback. Some of it was really positive. Some of it was, hey, yeah, there's some things that we need to work on. And I think that as we progress and finish up with this presentation, you'll see some of the things that we are working on. The big thing, Pioneer offers a much needed niche, right? Not enough time for hot lunch lines was a common thing, but I've been noticing, every time I walk by at lunchtime, because we're out there all the time, and literally between 10 and 15 minutes after lunch starts, and we have a half-hour lunch, there is nobody in line. So what I'm thinking is that probably came from when there were free lunches, free breakfast, all that, and so a lot more students were eating the lunch that we provide at school. And now we probably don't have as many that eat there at school because it's not free anymore. So they get lunch elsewhere. So I don't know the total or the solution to that right now, but I'm sure a lot of people have ideas.
Maybe even watch in the fall, because sometimes a pattern develops because somebody might give up because they are tired of waiting. And so then, what I'd hate to think is we have kids that are just going without lunch because they'd rather not stand in line the whole time.
Yeah, no, and I understand that too, and so that would be a good thing for us to do, is to do that. I know that Elizabeth Martinez is going to be looking at kind of redoing our line to make it a little more efficient as well. So we'll see what that does. And then we got our successes versus our challenges, strengths and weaknesses, whatever you want to call it. One of the things I did want to mention, though, from the panels is they did commend us for not bringing in the people who are big CHS cheerleaders, right? We brought a wide variety of people, our staff, our students, our parents, that maybe they weren't big Carson High School rah-rah people. And they gave us good, honest feedback, and that's what we were looking for. We weren't looking to go through this and pat ourselves on the back and say, yep, we got a good thing going. We don't need to change anything. We wanted some honest feedback, and I do believe that we got it. If you look here for our successes and challenges, respectful and supportive interactions with staff, teachers are honest, caring, supportive, a lot of good stuff, right? But challenges too. One of the things, differentiated learning opportunities, where we can't have a one size fits all. One of the things that we talked to our staff about at the beginning of the year is, hey, we got these yonder pouches, and now guess what? We got to bring our A game. And so we still have to work on that and work on those instructional strategies. And some of the other things, students feel a great deal of stress and pressure. Our ACT performance, we need to improve. I mean, there's no question about it, and we have some plans in place to help us improve on our ACT as well. So, bottom line, what he told us, you're a good school doing good things. So, but we'll have some specific feedback, and we'll have a full report come in here later in the spring. Cell phones update page. I think the biggest thing that you look at here is, have we had a reduction in negative behaviors? Yeah, we have. As the year progressed, have we had some fatigue in this, especially with having a very late spring break? Yes, right? Everybody experiences it, but we still have to make sure that we are focusing in on what we're doing. And one of the things that we are going to do moving forward is we will mandate the use of the yonder pouches. We use it as a tool more this year than anything else. And if we didn't see that, then we weren't digging through and say, hey, get your phone in your pouch. Because if we didn't see it, usually it wasn't happening, right? And one of the big things that you have to look at here, and again, wow, little tiny writing. If you look at those graphs in there, restricting phones / earbud use has had a positive impact on my classroom this year. That's that top one. And if you look at it, it's pushing in the 90%. Positive impact on the classroom. We had one person that said it didn't. I don't know. I really want to talk to that one person just to see their perspective. And, same thing, restricting phone or earbud use had a positive impact on school climate this year. Overwhelmingly 4s and 5s, right? So this obviously had a very positive impact on our school. Library. Ananda, thank you so much for making that, because I couldn't have come close to doing this. I mean, the biggest thing is our library is literally the hub of our school. Kids go through it. I don't know. You probably have about 6,000 different kids go through that school, go through the library every day, multiple times. Well, that's why there's 6,000. Yeah. It seems like there's someone always in there. It seems like there's something always going on, and Ananda does such a great job with that. And so I'll let you guys read those on your on your time. Could you just read us the top quarter? Which one? Oh, yeah. No, I cannot. Whew. Yeah. She's good. That's the summary. PLC and MTSS, basically we're going from capacity to commitment. And we'll talk about that here right now. So really our PLC process, professional learning communities, is really focused in on identifying best practices, right? You analyze your data from your assessments. You determine, hey, who's doing the best? And this is how it's supposed to work. Are we there? Are we exactly there yet? No, we're still working on it, right? But who's doing the best and what sort of strategies are you using, right? That's really what we want to do. And that way all students are going to win when we have that happen. Dedicated intervention time. This year we had a couple days a week where we had a half-hour piece of time where students could get what they need from their teachers. Next year we're expanding that. We actually have a 4x4 schedule change up there. There's two things I had to focus in on with the current teacher contract. One of them was the amount of time that you can teach, that you have instructional time. I think it turns out to be like 25 hours, right, Mr. Sadler? 25 hours. And you also had to have an average of 45 minutes a day for prep time. And so that was a challenge, huge challenge. We got it fixed. We got it worked out though. And it basically, we're starting 5 minutes earlier and ending 2 minutes later. So we added 7 minutes to the day, but we were able to do this 4x4 to where at the end of the day, we have an intervention block where the first part of the block, all freshmen and sophomores will be working through their exact path. It's a very specific and targeted and individualized path to work on things that they need to work on. If you look at it and if you think about it, that's really it should affect their ACT scores. All juniors will be placed into an ACT prep course during that time as well. And then the second half of that time is going to be our flex time, where students and teachers get to kind of choose where they go. Our teachers will be a lot of them already have, but have prioritized their standards, and that's where the students will get intervention for mostly. We're also going to run some extensions in there as well for students that may not be in need of interventions. Yes. It's a four-wheel drive truck. 4x4 means we have 8 periods and you're going to have 4 periods each day. So you have an A day and a B day, kind of like what we have now. You still have 4 periods every day right now, but the last one is an AB 55, which is a 55-minute period day, whereas the other classes were 90-minute periods. And so it created a huge problem. Our teachers were able to work through it, but it was difficult to have your pacing similar for your AB 55, a 55-minute class, than every other day with a 90-minute class. It may seem like there's more time in an AB 55, which there is, but there's also more transition time, up and out of class, back into class, where if you have a 90-minute piece of time, a block together, then there's less transition time out of the classroom. So that's one of the theories behind it as well. Do you understand that now? Okay, thanks.
How does that affect? Is it going to affect the start, the stop, the lunchtime?
Yeah, our lunch will probably be a little bit earlier right now than it was this year, but they still have a half-hour lunch. So, yeah. So I talked a little bit about the personalized academic support through our Edmentum and exact path data. The intervention team formation, and one of the people that has really been spearheading that a lot this year is Cheryl Macy over there. I stole her from district office, which was a very good steal for me. But we've really built up our intervention team to take a look at our processes through our intervention and really be able to provide different interventions or develop some interventions. Not do the interventions, but provide what we need to do for certain students that kind of slip through the tier 1 and the tier 2, and that tier 3 is more individualized for students. Tier 1 is what everybody gets. Tier 2 is 15 to 20% that didn't quite get it that first time. It's usually small groups. And then tier 3 is more of a individualized intervention for students. And then we'll be looking at a specific team formation to tackle all of the different tasks that come along with PLCs and MTSS. So now we, the other little tiny thing that got put onto our plate this year was the Pioneer Campus. And so that it's been a very, it's been challenging, to say the least, right? It's challenging. I don't know how else to put it. But it's been a good challenge. And I do believe we have a very good plan moving forward.
I would just ask you, what have some of the challenges been?
I don't know. I don't think there's always been a good relationship between the two campuses. I'm not saying that everybody hated each other, but there's been some hard feelings between the two campuses, and we're trying to work to mend that right now. And that was one of the big things that I knew we needed to do.
Is that with the student to student or staff to staff? Or?
I think it's a little bit of both. Sometimes you may feel like a little brother or a little sister in a smaller campus, right? And so we're trying to just mend that to make sure that everybody knows that we're one campus, or we're one school, two different campuses, but one school. And so that's the biggest thing. It's that it was very relational this year, and that's what I tried to focus in on before we made a decision as to how we're moving forward. And I wish I had more time with the accreditation piece and everything. It was difficult, and it was difficult to get into both places as much as I wanted to, is what it comes down to. That was probably another big challenge for it. And then just trying to decide how to move forward. We did talk to a lot of people along the way to try to figure out. But I think as we did, the biggest thing was a focus on graduation and something, right? What if is it a certification? Is it, should we make it a magnet school? Should we make it this? Should we make it that? And really what we did is, so here's what it is. First off, it's a rebranding. Sometimes, I guarantee you, there's some people in the community that have a negative connotation of Pioneer right now, okay? And for whatever reason, right? I've only been here for 2 years. I don't have the complete history. I hear people from all all walks of life that have their different opinions on it and everything. But I knew we needed a rebranding, and that was, I think, that was a common theme from a lot of people that we spoke with, right? And so what we did is Dr. Molden had a great idea with her staff and students over there of how about we rename it? And so it was a joint effort by the staff and students to rename it into the Silver Campus. So CHS Silver Campus is what it'll be named at. It was what it'll be named moving forward. The goal also is to maintain a small school atmosphere. I mean, first off, we're not going to fit a ton of kids in there, right? We can fit a few more right now, and the goal is to have about 50 students per grade level. We're not there at every grade level. I think our senior class is the only one that has 50. Junior, that's what I said, right? Yes. So right now our junior class is the only class that meets that level. And so right now we're making a very concerted effort to go over to Eagle Valley and Carson Middle to give them a survey as to what what we're looking for the kind of kid that would fit into the goals of our Silver Campus. And I also sent an email home, a parent square home today, to all the Eagle Valley and the Carson Middle School 8th graders and 8th grade parents. So they should see. I haven't checked my emails to see if I have any hate mail yet. So well, that's yet to come. But that was the start of it, and then we're going to make a video so that we can push it out to all of their advisory classes, and then we'll have a survey, and based on the results of those surveys, we'll see where we're going to go, what students we're going to target to try to bring in. And again, we're going to try to target about 50 students. So the graduation, and if you look at that, we're looking at more of a career exploration type through JAG. Jobs for Nevada's graduates is what that stands for. The A is really an N, but JAG just sound way better than Jung. So really what happens is all freshmen will be enrolled in a JAG program. And they'll be taking those classes, they'll be exploring different options, different ideas, different things that are out there for our graduates, and really be able to focus in on the skills, skill development, all that stuff. We're also the goal is to have AVID over there as well. And a lot of times what that does is it helps our students in being able to explore some of these different options that they have. We're streamlining the classes. Our AP, our Jumpstart, our CTE programs, they'll all be run over at the main campus. Does that mean these kids don't have access to them? That's not what it means. But right now, as freshmen and sophomores, we're going to ask them to make a 2-year commitment to this, so that by the time they're in the 3rd quarter of their sophomore year, they can decide, hey, yeah, I want to continue to do this. I want to try to do some work experience, internships, apprenticeships, things of that nature. Or maybe we have students who say, you know what, I really want to go to the main campus because this CTE program is really intriguing to me, and I want to start attending over there. Or the AP classes, because now after going through AVID and getting some of these other skills, I really think I can jump into either Jumpstart or AP classes. So everybody still has options. Everything is still open to our students. We're not restricting anything. We're just trying to make sure that they have an option for moving forward and after they graduate. And then the communication piece is the parent square that goes out and all that stuff. So, and one of the things is I know that one of the reasons that Pioneer had increased their level of AP classes and Jumpstart and CTEs is because it was that star rating system, and they were a standalone high school. And so they didn't really have a choice but to do that. And so now that it's under one umbrella, we're all part of that same Carson High School community, and we don't need to run everything in every place. So then I'll wrap it up with our celebrations this year. And I forgot, yeah. Apparently I added something to it after I gave it to Renee. Anyway, chamber leadership, if the chamber leadership group threw a great idea from Superintendent Fueling over here with, hey, what about putting a new ticket booth out there, right? So it's in the construction phase. So the demolition's done, and now we're trying to build it back up. And right now you're going to have, a ton of people can go through that gate. But we'll it'll get built up and it'll be good. The collaboration with Carson now, like we talked about before, the Entrepreneurs in Action, that was a huge celebration for us, and they made a ton of money off of that. All sorts of generous businesses and individuals here in our community, and we are very, very grateful for them. And our star rating gained points from the 23-24 star rating, so we're adding, we're doing well. CTE programs, EL testing. It's increasing. We still, again, have work to do, and a lot of our teachers have specific goals that do tie into that. It's not because of it, but we also know that a lot of the things that are rated in that star rating are important. We're building capacity for our PLCs and our MTSS work that we talked about. I had about 25% of my staff attend a conference that was very specific with what we're going to do and how we're going to move forward. And we're actually bringing those presenters in at the beginning of the school year this next year to make sure that my whole staff gets that same sort of training so that we can all speak the same language and we can have a better understanding of how we're going to help these kids moving forward. And one thing that I really want to point out is the TFI increase. It's a tiered fidelity inventory that is through our MTSS process. It's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. We talked about tier 1 being what every student gets, tier 2 being what small groups get through an intervention type activity, and then tier 3 through very individualized interventions for students. And what we did is we went from a 29% implementation to a 70% implementation in 1 year. And again, I do have to point out Cheryl Macy on that one. The work that she did is truly incredible for pushing through that stuff. There you have it. Quick update. It might have been a little bit longer than I had hoped, but there's a lot of things that happened. A lot of things that happened this year. So, yes, a lot of good things. We kind of swept the bad things under the rug. Any questions from anybody?
I'm sure there's lots of questions and comments, right? Who
Sure
wants to start?
Sure, there's none.
Richard?
No, I really don't have a question, I guess, but just the comments. Thank you for the work you guys are doing, all your staff here. I know the accreditation process is very, very rigorous. And did you actually get accredited, or are you just still in the process?
No, we didn't get accredited this year.
Yeah,
No,
we did.
we did.
I hadn't heard.
It was just a joke.
The final accreditation report has not been released to us yet, but
Okay.
he said everything looks good. There's no
But
problem.
it should be no problem
Yeah,
then. to
and
go
it's
ahead
for
and get
6
that.
years.
That's
It
good.
used to be
yeah.
for 5, but it's for 6 now.
Okay. And I'm glad that the change made with Pioneer is taking place. And I think that'll be helpful and hopefully it'll be successful. So thank you guys for your work on that.
All right.
Molly?
Yeah. So, no, I really don't have a question, or it's just more of a question for you, I guess, or if there's something that the board could do, that would help Carson High School, what would it be? I mean, and I said this to the middle school as well, this middle school principals, and then I said, you don't have to answer right now, but send us an email, and I still haven't seen one. So.
Do I have a deadline for that email?
Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, we are here and, I mean, we get our biweekly report, but, I mean, if there is something that we could be doing to support, please let us know. I know all of us are, very interested in all the different activities. So I would ask, everybody that's at the high school, please make sure that when you have an activity going on, let the board know, because if we can attend, we more than would be grateful to get that and to attend those activities and whatnot as well. But, it's a team effort and it's a community effort. And, I know that there was a challenge that was student and parent engagement. If there's any, thing that we could do to help with that, please feel free to reach out, because I believe a lot of us are parents up here.
Yeah. I mean, it's an open invitation to come into the school whenever you want, right? Anytime. I would encourage you, next year when we give us some time to kind of streamline a little bit of our intervention, because there's going to be bumps in the road. It's not perfect, right? But once we get through a couple weeks, please come in, check it out, right? You guys are always welcome, and I would welcome you with open arms. I may not hug you, but I can be, hey, all right, right?
I would echo Molly's comment about, our desire to go and be in as many events as we possibly can to support what you guys are doing. Because, I mean, this entire report, I can't help it but just, smile of everything that you're doing here. These innovative ideas are just impressive. And I am so pleased that our students are going to benefit from all of this. And that's what they need. I mean, it's a large school, and we have all kinds of students, some that are, doing the average, others going above and beyond. But I feel that with what you are approaching them is with opportunities for all. And that is a blessing. So thank you for all this work. I'm extremely impressed with your idea of getting the students to take the JUG courses. The freshmen and sophomores is my understanding, correct?
Yeah.
And that is going to be required. They're not going to have an option. I was telling AJ, I think that is exactly what many of our students need, is that little push. It's like, you don't have an option. You're gonna take it. And at the end of the day, they're gonna thank you. They're gonna thank you. So I personally thank you for that. I think it's impressive. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so if we don't have any other comments or questions, I thank you very much for this report and for all the work that you are doing. Seriously.
I'll say good selection of your team, because
Yes.
Ananda's probably the
yes.
only person who could pull me out of a meeting and have me send text and stuff for your accreditation. So you picked the right people. Good job.
And it's a question because it was brought up at the middle school level as well. Do you find that the busing, that some of your students find it hard to get to school because of the radius of our bus? If we were to expand the busing, okay, I'm seeing heads being shaken, so there you go. Because it was brought up when they did the middle school presentations that, our radius with our bus routes is a little bit too small. And so if there was a possibility that we could expand it, it could benefit some of the students as well. And I'm going to say too that, with the legislation that is moving forward with the
Time change.
the time change, that scares me, a little bit as well. But so your staff just answered that question for me. So, but you can feel free to add on to it if you feel as that it might be one of the reasons for the absenteeism, would be the busing.
Obviously, if we have more busing, more kids are probably going to get on, right? I don't know if that's the reason for chronic absenteeism, but and we work with a lot of families to try to get them there. We have a very specific person that is dedicated to that position. I know we've done it at the district level as well. So yeah, it's to provide more busing is never going to hurt. I don't know exactly what the impact is going to be because I haven't really done the study. I know that I'm sure our counselors and Ms. Gordon over there probably has some pretty good insight as to how many families that would affect.
I do have one other thing. I'm sorry. Maybe I
You
missed
should
it.
not have picked up that microphone.
Maybe I missed it in your presentation, but you mentioned absenteeism. Do you see the rate dropping, or is it the same? Or
the rate is probably about the same. It's probably dropped a little bit. As much as we want to, no. It's still a challenge. It's a challenge, and so through some of these different processes that we're doing with PLCs and MTSS, we're hoping that the classes are more and more engaging, more and more relevant, and I think those are some of the big things that we can immediately control to up our game a little bit to encourage our students to be there.
All right. Thank you, done. You may go home now again. Okay. Let's see, so we're moving on to agenda item number 11, presentation and discussion on the tentative budget for the Carson City School District for fiscal year 2025, 2026. And this is for discussion only. Welcome, Mr. Spencer Winward. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Thank you, members of the board. Do we have spare batteries for this microphone, just in case it dies midway through? I think it's seen some mileage tonight. All righty. Well, again, this is our first look. You should have had in your packet a copy of the tentative budget, how it will look when we provide it to taxation. This gives us a chance to kind of review a few things, take input from you guys to move into and apply into the final budget as we see fit, answer any questions you see along the way. So kind of in continuation of the couple of presentations before we did on budget assumptions, we'll kind of compare how it looks compared to what our last assumptions were a couple of weeks ago that we spoke about. So start off just kind of a little timeline from taxation that goes through the things that we go through that we get to. So we have the blue arrow where we're at right before April 15th, where we discuss this before we provide it to taxation. And then again, a month from now, we'll have a meeting on May 27th. We have to publish that in the newspaper, as it says there on May, 14 days before, but not 7 days before. Hit that magic number when we put it in the newspaper, and then we have to have that meeting sometime between the 19th and 31st of May. And that'll be May 27th, our board meeting. And then once we do that, then we provide that to taxation, the final budget, on June 8th per statutory requirements. And then finally, on the last day of December, we can amend that budget should the need arise. Once we've had some of the school year to go through, we know what our enrollment is at that point and can make any adjustments if we've had any large items that would require changes. So one other thing also in a legislative year is in any year the legislator meets and revenues or expenditures are increased or decreased, we can go ahead and amend our budget within 30 days of the close of the session. So that usually ends up right around the beginning of July when we would present that amended budget. I'm sorry, I cannot speak English today. That amended budget should the need arise. Okay, just a few things to the budget mechanics that we go through. Again, essentially what budgeting is we have infinite needs and finite resources. And so we do our best to use those resources to get the most mileage we can out of them. This budget was built with information available at the time, which again, some of that is a conjecture at this point and our best guess. We always use conservative and reasonable assumptions as best we can about any future events. Our revenue generally is based on prior year or estimates given by NDE, taxation, or other governmental entities that provide that to us. And the expenses are a combination of prior budgets, projections, some of our historical trends, agreements that we have in place, and inflation factors. And it's been very good to us over the years to use conservatism. We've built our budgets, which is given the choice about outcomes, we choose the lower amount of revenue and a greater value of expenditures. And that is treated as very well and to put us in a good position to have a planned spend down this year. Okay, so this is a slide from 2 weeks ago, just where we left off on kind of the assumptions. 80.8 million of general fund revenue and 84.3 million of expenditures for a $3.5 million deficit. That's kind of where we left off with our projections.
So that's different than what's on page 2.
I'll get to that.
Thanks.
So, and again, this is what I presented 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll kind of see how it's different in the actual budget based off of what our assumptions were. So, and we have some very astute board members. Page 2 is a great spot to look for those. This is the bottom line of the general fund for this budget. It says 83.5 million of revenue, and then I have in parentheses no change there. Those of you who think that I'm bad at math, that would be some good like, yeah, this kid doesn't know what he's talking about. That number is different because we have the SB 231 revenue that slid from one of our special revenue funds to the general fund this year. That's $2.7 million. So in this budget, it now lives in our general fund because that's what we're being asked by the state to do. So our 80.8 million that we used for our assumptions is still that same number. We now have this 2.7 million of existing money that we had the last year is now supposed to be recognized in our general fund. So at 80.8 plus 2.7 million is the 83.5 million. And I believe my math worked out on that. And then our expenditures, again, no change here. 88.2 million, but if you'll notice, that's different than what I had. If I go back a slide, that 84.3 million, looks considerably lower than this 88.2 million that you see in our general fund budget. So again, 2.7 million of that is exactly, we have $2.7 million of SB 231 money that's spent on salary and benefits in a special revenue fund. We have 2.7 million of expenditures now recognized in our general fund budget. So it just slid from the funding source where it has been recognized to the funding source they want it to be recognized. So that accounts for 2.7 million of that. And with those accounts in there, our deficit stays the same at 3.5 million. And this is where if you're really good at math, you're like, this kid is bad at math again, because 88.2 million minus 83.5 is more than 3.5 million. So I knew someone would have that question. And I could put paragraphs of description on these slides, or figured I would just talk about it. So this shows our 84.3 million of expenditures from our assumptions. And then what you see on page 2 of the budget expenditures of 88.2 million, the items that take place into that. So we don't include in our deficit the 1 million of contingency. We put that in our budget in the event that we should need to spend it, but we don't have that intention now. And then also there's $200,000 of carry forward. That's also in the budget. We don't put that in there because really what that is $200,000 of FY25 money that's not spent, that we're rolling that budget authority forward to next year. So we don't calculate those in there. And then again, the 2.7 million of SB 231 expenditures. So if you subtract those three items from our 88.2 million, that gets us back to that 84.3 from our assumptions. So for all intents and purposes, no changes from what we presented 2 weeks ago. The next slide just goes in a little bit more to the difference of that structural deficit versus the taxation deficit. And I have a couple of snippets from page 2 that shows our total revenue of 83.4 million and our total expenditures with transfers of 88.2 for the projected deficit of 4.7 million. Keep in mind that's our taxation deficit. That's not really what our structural deficit is. And the main reason being is that $4.7 million minus the $1 million of contingency and the 200,000 of carry forward. You reduce those out of that, brings us back to the $3.5 million deficit we were talking about last meeting. This meeting has not been so long that I thought that was last year. That was not a Freudian slip. Any questions at this point?
Questions from the board? No, no questions.
All righty. In nutshell, that really covers kind of the general fund. There's no huge surprises or changes from what we had put together for our assumptions and what we presented earlier. If you have specific questions on anything on the budget, I'm happy to answer those. What I foresee from the tentative budget to the final, again, keep in mind this is a legislative year and anything could change. But based off the information we have now, I'm expecting little to no change for our general fund, special education fund, or PCFP funds. Those are pretty dialed in. I don't think that we'd see a lot. We may still have some employee turnover that could generate some savings. But as what we know at this point, everything that we know has been put into the budget. State and federal grants, wouldn't expect any change from the tentative to the final. Keep in mind those are self-augmenting funds that as we learn what our revenues are, we're allowed to adjust those throughout the year. Local grants and gifts and donations, student activities, relatively little change, if any at all, from the tentative to the final budget. And our bond and capital project funds we might have some changes as we know a little bit more about how our summertime projects are shaping up. If we have any of those that will be front loaded in the construction season, meaning we'll see more expenses prior to June 30th, or if we'll see more of those after July 1. And as we have a wrap up a few things from this year going on, that there might be a few changes there. Nutrition services don't expect to change, and nor any changes to the proprietary funds. Other items to consider in our budget. ESSER spending is now a thing of the past, doesn't really affect our budget. There's none of that for FY26. And we're continuing to kind of monitor federal revenue sources or changes that are coming down the pipeline. A lot of uncertainty there. That's something that I just wanted to make mention here because that could affect how our budget looks and maybe the kind of thing that would be reason for us to amend our budget after the close of the session. And then also legislative changes once the session's done and all the dust settles, there may be need to change the budget based on what's passed into law and how that would affect us. We're in the process of changing our contract with, or finalizing a new contract with Chartwells. And that shouldn't change it, but as they provide some updated revenue, that might change that. So our revenue number is in there are kind of based off some older projections, and we would expect to get a newer projection. And if that's significant, then we'd want to reflect that in our final budget.
Speaking of nutrition, if the state does go forward with universal free meals for all students for breakfast and lunch, what's that going to look like for us?
I think longer lines at the high school based off the Mr.
But I mean
Carson's presentation.
budgetarily.
So generally, I think we would see probably a little bit of a bump in participation from where we're at now, which generally we'd probably look at probably a break-even type of year to maybe a small increase in excess or in the nutrition fund. Whereas currently, I think we'll probably have a slight deficit in the nutrition fund. It does have enough ending fund balance to cover any sort of deficit we could end up with this year. So I'm not anticipating any transfer from the general fund and nutrition fund. So for the next year or two, nutrition fund will be self-sufficient even in the event of a deficit. And that'll kind of get us through to kind of see what changes may come down the pipeline legislatively, either on the state or federal level.
Thank you so much for
Is
this.
your,
Go ahead.
Is your other items asking us what other items we might have?
Well, in this case, yes, it is, because I don't have any other items, so.
Okay. I would like to see us expand the radius for the busing, for the bus routes. And what would that, if you worked with the middle school and the high school and the elementary schools obviously as well, what would that look like? And then what would be the expense to that? And then what would that do to our overall budget is what I would like for the school district to consider. Because it is an issue and we hear it a lot, on that route. So if we could possibly look into that, talk to them and to the administrators and see, I would like to add that in if that's possible. But then I do, on that note, on your budget here that you gave us the tentative budget for the fiscal year, you have color codings, and I'm not really quite sure what they all mean. So a large amount of them are tan. And then, so does that just mean that they are different then? And then you have some green. And so I'm not sure there's no color legend.
Generally, the color codings are just kind of my own notes for cells that I need to take a look at again.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I take a look at and I don't change the color coding off of it. Or some of the tan ones are ones that require different input as opposed to having something formulaic flow through. So there's not any of the color codings there don't have any significance as far as the budget or numbers or anything. It's more kind of just keeping track of it in the Excel document that we use to put this all together.
Okay. And so I did go through it and I had some questions, but I think I'll deal with them offline for you. And they were just questions where it really was more of the expenditure was 100,000 plus from, whether it be from the ending year of 6/30/24 to our current year, and then our current year going into the next year, school year, it would have been like, plus 100,000 in expenditures. So I'll take that offline with you just to kind of see what why such an increase
Yeah,
on that
I'd be
end.
happy to address any of those you have if you want to
Okay.
either meet or send them via email, either way.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And then I think for the busing, I don't know if that's the kind of thing, maybe I'm stepping on Mr. Russell's toes, but is that something that needs to come up for, as like another agenda item? Or is that something that we could discuss in the future as part of budgetary concerns?
So I think if we're talking about applying funds for that, you can budget for it. If it's going to require any new contracting, new buses, anything like that, it would probably need to be another agenda item, but you can budget for it to create the space. You don't need anything other than budget approval for that.
Alrighty, thank you. And that is all I have this evening, unless you'd like me to talk for another 45 minutes. I can arrange for that.
Just okay, just one more thing. Can you tell me though, where in this budget, the tentative budget is the and this is something you could probably do on, but where is the allocation for busing? To where then we can see what we're allocating towards now versus what it might cost us in the future if we expand it. But again, you can follow up on that in an email. Thank you.
Yeah, I will send that. It mostly lives in general fund and special education funds where it is. There's a function code called 2700 student transportation, which anywhere you see that would have numbers would show that. So again, that's largely going to be in the general fund and special education fund. And I can get you a little bit more a look on this page. So no problem. It is page 13 for general funds if you want to get a head start.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Winward. You always have the answers to our questions. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to agenda number 12. So, Mr. Superintendent Feeling requested if we can table this agenda item for our next meeting. So I will entertain a motion to take.
You don't need a motion. You
I
can
don't
just
need a
table it.
motion? I can just go ahead and do that? Okay, so then, excuse me, go ahead. Okay, good. Then we have tabled that agenda item number 12 for our next meeting. And then agenda item number 13, approval of consent agenda, and this is for possible action.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Wald and second by trustee Walker. Any board discussion? See none. Any public comments? See none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 14, informational items, and this is for discussion only. No action will be taken. I see no discussion. Any discussion, Molly? Did I see? And that's again.
Does it say where our next board meeting is? Where is? Yeah,
this
I'm
is-
looking. So Tuesday, at the theater. Okay, thank you.
Yep. You're good? Okay. Agenda item number 15, request for future agenda topics. See none? Okay. Agenda item number 16, adjournment. Thank you so much, everyone.